right, we're going to begin. We have 24 candidates here tonight, and we want to make sure that all of you have an opportunity to hear from all of them. So if you could continue to come in and do so quietly. I recognize that it's very crowded. We apologize for that. Although, again, we're very encouraged that everyone is out here tonight. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Brian Levy. I'm the president of the Mount Vernon Belvedere Association. We are honored to host this 2016 Mayoral Candidates Forum in conjunction with the Charles Street Development Corporation. Karen Stokes is here behind me, and she's going to give a brief introduction in 1 second. As long as I have this big crowd, on behalf of the MVBA, I do want to make 2 quick plugs, and then we'll get started. The first plug is, it's important not to just come to events like this, but to be involved in your community. Grassroots support, grassroots involvement is really where change begins, I believe. Our neighborhood association has our meeting on the 3rd Tuesday of every month at 7:30 here at the Belvedere, traditionally on the 1st floor. So I'd look forward to seeing those of you who live in our community in March, the 3rd Tuesday of March at 7:30. The second plug, just real quick, is we are trying to encourage, like I said, more of that involvement. We're trying to set up a system of block captains so that we can have better communication both downwards to every block in our neighborhoods and upwards to our association. If you live in the neighborhood and you'd be interested in becoming a block captain, I would encourage you to talk to my vice president, Michelle Richter, during our intermission that we're going to be taking after the first 12 candidates go. She has a sign-up sheet back there in the foyer out here. And we would really love to see some of you guys become block captains. I'm going to introduce Karen Stokes right here, and then I'm going to lay out the format of tonight's forum, and then we will begin. This is Karen Stokes.
Welcome, everyone. This is a tremendous turnout, and as far as I'm concerned, an overcrowded room is a great sign for the small d democracy here. My name is Karen Stokes. I'm the CEO of Strong City, Baltimore, and I also serve as the vice chair of the Charles Street Development Corporation. And the Charles Street Development Corporation is one of the co-sponsors, and Charles Street itself is one of the, is probably Baltimore's original Main Street and the historic and cultural center of the city. We like to call it the spine of the city. And we have diverse stakeholders here, world-class art museums, educational institutions, businesses, and neighborhoods. Some of the topics that we have asked our candidates to focus on tonight are things that we know are near and dear to those folks who live in this particular part of the city: transportation, economic development, social services, in this corridor in particular, in the area of the Old Goucher neighborhood, where we have quite a few methadone clinics and other social service agencies. In terms of our economic development concerns, we see this as a very important part of the city, just like the Harbor and Harbor East is in South Baltimore. This is a historic part of our city, and we want to make sure that we continue to have thoughtful economic development here. Infrastructure is important, and of course safety, as it is in all parts of the city. So thank you very much for coming tonight. Brian's going to talk a little bit about how we're going to do this. Thank you for your patience. We're going to unfortunately not have opportunities for a lot of Q&A, but it is an opportunity, probably the first time, or at least have more of the participants who are running for mayor right now than maybe any other forum that I've gone to so far. So thank you again for coming, and Brian will describe our format.
All right, so we have 24 candidates who have said they would be here tonight. I think most of them are here. Because of that, we're going to give an opportunity equally to all of them to speak. Our candidates will be speaking one at a time, going in alphabetical order, also by party. So the Democratic candidates will speak first in alphabetical order, followed by the Green Party, followed by our Republican candidates, followed by the unaffiliated candidates. After the first 12 candidates go, which are our 12 Democrats, we're going to take a brief 5-minute intermission. If you do not plan to stay for tonight's entire event, we would ask you to, first of all, leave respectfully and quietly, but also to perhaps do so during that intermission. After that intermission, we will invite the other 12 candidates into the front here, and they will go. Each candidate's going to speak one at a time. As I said, they're going to be given 7 minutes to speak. We're really going to try to hold them to that 7 minutes. They're asked to split that time as they would like, but we're suggesting they split it between making a statement and then taking questions. If you would like to ask a question of the candidate, what we'd ask you to do is come up to this mic we have in the front so that everyone can hear you and ask your question. Again, due to the short number of minutes that every candidate's going to get, not every question is going to be able to be answered, but we'll do our best. So, without further ado, let's begin. Mr. Gersham Cupid.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Gersham Cupid. I'm a Democratic candidate for the mayor of Baltimore City. A little bit about myself. I am 28 years old. I went to public schools, and I've been working in the Baltimore Police Department going on 10 years. So it's nothing new for me for public service. Why have I decided to run for mayor of Baltimore? Well, let's be honest. April of 2015 was a disgrace not only for the city, but for our nation, as we were seen internationally as a city on fire. And unfortunately, I was one of those officers that received bricks, trash cans, and many things was thrown at me. It hurt because every day I give my life, I put my life on the line to serve each and every one of you, and I did it quietly for 10 years. When I was 19 years old, I had an opportunity to be an engineer. I had a job offer at 19 for $40,000. I choose to serve. That's where my heart has been. That's where it is. I decided to go into politics when speaking to my pastor about things that I want to do and things that bother me, you know, the things you talk to your pastor about. And he suggested that I should run for the office of mayor. I discarded it at first, saying, well, the spotlight is not really my thing. I like to do things from, you know, behind the scenes and serve. But when good people do nothing, well, what happened the last 20 years? I mean, really, we are still dealing with the same problems that we had, right? We are continually losing the population in Baltimore City, and the number one reason is because of crime, right? Crime. Can't seem to get control of crime. Poverty has stricken our city for generations, and it seems like we cannot win this crime. We have been dealing with a war on drugs for generations, right? It seems like this war never ends. We're dealing with police reform. We're dealing with police brutality, right? We have angry citizens and residents. You know, we have 28 candidates, something that we have not seen in the history of Baltimore, because a lot of people are tired of what we're seeing, right? So I take this challenge, not for fun or games, but because it means a lot to me. My kids will grow up in Baltimore City. I plan to retire in Baltimore City. And we need change. We can do better. And we can't wait for 4 years or 8 years to get it done. We need to start now. We need to get on the right track now. No more playing politics or playing games or these things that have not been working. We need change. We need to do it now. That's why I'm running for the office of mayor of Baltimore. I hope to gain your support, not just by the policies that I will introduce, but because I have the character and the integrity to get the job done. When you have a good general of character, of leadership, the ability to make tough decisions and to stand in the face of any adversary, enemies or friends, and tell them what's right for the city, you're ready to lead the city. Not just one half of Baltimore, but the other half that have been ignored for generations. When Senator Bernie Sanders came to West Baltimore and he said, well, it looked like a third world country. Well, this is what we know. This is what we know. This is what we see each and every day. And what are we doing about it? Absolutely nothing. It's a disgrace. And we need to get back on the right track. We need to do it now. That's why I'm running for mayor of Baltimore. Any questions?
If you would like to come up and ask a question, you can come up to the mic right here.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
How are you, sir?
I appreciate your presentation there. My question is this, is that, are you opposed, one of the things I've always said, and lots of us have said, is that all the drugs and weapons that's confiscated by the police department, why shouldn't it be a citizens group to witness the incineration process of all the drugs and weapons that's confiscated, because there's no accountability in terms of what happened to them drugs and weapons?
Well, one of the things that we definitely need to work on is transparency and, including, the citizens is what we do on a day-to-day basis. And I would not be opposed to any citizen witnessing, the Baltimore Police Department disposing of drugs and guns. Does that answer your question? All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Cupid, how many arrests did you make last year?
Well, last year, I would probably say none. I mean, right now I'm currently a sergeant, so now I supervise, so I didn't have to make any arrests. Yes?
How did you promote community policing in the police officers that you supervise?
Well, it's basically encouraging my guys to interact with the public. I encourage my officers, who I think is some of the best officers, to talk to kids, to get out of the car, walk foot. It's a constant fight, because a lot of times they want to go and chase the drug dealers and chase the arrest or whatever and stop the violence. But I always encourage them to talk to regular citizens and people in the community.
Freddie Gray case.
Yes.
Six officers
decided
to kill a young black man minding his own business, which is a violation of Section 3-803. I know this because I'm a law student. How do you feel about the the Freddie Gray case? You as a police officer, if you were there, what would you have done better to make sure that this man will be still alive? My question is, okay, sorry. My question is, what would you have done better to make sure that Mr. Freddie Gray will be still alive today, because he should not be dead. His back shouldn't have been severed 80%, with his neck broke and suffering. He should be here today. What would you have done different that William Porter and the other 6 criminals didn't do? What would you have done?
Well, I would have definitely called for medical assistance when he requested it, as our policy tells us we must do. I have no additional information other than what you have pertaining to the case, but that's what I would have done differently.
And another thing is,
I'm sorry, that is going to be a little bit over 7 minutes.
Well,
just to make
Maryland
sure.
seatbelt law.
Sir.
They should have knew that the Maryland seatbelt law is law, and they should have made sure.
Sir.
They should have made sure that he was seated up. You want to have a forum.
Sir, this is an opportunity for the candidates to answer our questions. I understand we have just 11 more just Democrats to go. We're going to have to cut people off. There's going to be plenty more time to talk about the Mr. Gray case. Mr. Cupid, if you would just wrap up, give your answer, and then we're going to have to move on.
All right, so just to address that, let me say that rest in peace, Freddie Gray, and I am not opposed to any officer being arrested for anything that he or she does wrong. I will say that there is a way to go about seeking justice, and we must do that in a respectful and lawful manner. Thank you.
Next, we have former Mayor Sheila Dixon.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to be here, and it's great to see so many people out. So you asked the question, why am I running for mayor? I know what it takes to have a city that's safe, to have a city that is accountable to its constituent, to also know that to have a city where incidents that happened in April would not have happened under my administration. And I'm gonna tell you why. First of all, crime didn't go down until I became mayor of Baltimore City. And it came down because I didn't arrest our way out of this. What I did was I focused on the most violent offenders. We created a gun registry, but we also engaged our officers in the community working with the citizens of Baltimore, not just sitting in their cars, but involved and engaged with the citizens of Baltimore. And fourth and not least, we also involved the citizens to be a part of the process. What I'm going to do moving forward, and please, I encourage you to go on my website, and this is just on my crime plan. We have a 4-point plan, and that is that we're going to enhance the Civilian Review Board, where the Civilian Review Board will have not only staff, support staff to work with those individuals who are appointed, but individuals who have cases with the police can provide incident cases before this Civilian Review Board so that they can have them addressed. We're not going to rest our way out of this. We have to have and work with diversion programs. I want to engage and enhance community schools where we have mental health services in our schools that are going to help and work with families and children within schools. We're going to provide training programs, not city government, but we're going to work with effective entities within our communities and provide the resources from the city in order to create job opportunities, entrepreneurships, and as well as enhance businesses in the community. Now, it's only 7 minutes, and I want to just touch on a couple points. A lot of people bring up about what happened with Freddie Gray. And in that incident that happened, there's a lessons for all of us. But what we have to begin to do is we need to begin to sit down and have a dialogue, a real dialogue about what's happening in certain communities and what's not happening, and how do we balance what happened. Now, we sit in the midst of Mount Vernon, and I can give you point after point about the circulator that I created that enhanced tourism in the Mount Vernon community. I can also talk about the effort that I worked on with the Mount Vernon community and residents in this community to enhance with the Washington Monument and enhancing that. I can also talk about the MOU that we put together as relates to the Housing Resource Center that the current administration ignored, where we were working with some concerns as relates to homelessness. But what I'm going to do moving forward is we're going to work together to enhance and increase opportunities. Tax base. I've reduced the property tax over the last several years when I was mayor, but it's going to take new revenue sources to enhance. The biggest thing and the most important thing, and then I'm going to stop because there's so many people that have many questions, is that we have to have accountability in city government. So every agency will have a performance audit, and we will start from a zero-based budget to determine what's going to go in the budget and how we're going to assimilate the monies for city government in order to enhance our programs and opportunity for all residents. So I want to stop because I want to use my time with hearing questions from you from the audience.
That's okay. Hi. I'm sorry, but I know you as, because of the trials that you've had before and because of the corruption that you went through before, why should I believe that right now is different?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I made a bad choice. I would still be mayor if I had to disclose the relationship and gifts that were given to me when I was city council president. I learned from that mistake, and moving forward, I did disclose everything from down to a pen that was given to me when I was mayor. I know it's going to take trust from the community, but I know what it takes to run city government. I've paid the price. I've moved forward in my life and my family and others who I disappointed. But I also know that my passion and love for this city is going to move this city in the right direction. And so, yes, I know I'm going to have to gain trust from people in this city. So I appreciate that question.
Yes, as far as new revenue sources,
would you consider, say, an income tax on income earned in the city, such as like a commuter tax or something like that, or other income tax?
Well, first of all, we need to really assess all the taxes that we currently have. And we don't really, I would not encourage a commuter tax, because I then would not want Baltimore County or Anne Arundel County to enforce a commuter's tax. But what we need to do is, first of all, we need to stabilize and look at what we currently have as far as taxes that we are charging to the public, and reassess whether or not we need a container tax, whether or not we still need the communication tax that now people who have cell phones have to pay, and a lot of times people then find an address in another part of the state. So what we need to do is really assess all of our taxes to see what we need to have in order to function as city government, because right now the main taxes that we use for our general fund is property tax and the piggyback tax. But we need to really do an assessment of all our taxes, but I would not encourage any new taxes. If anything, I want to rescind taxes that we've been using over the last 5 years.
We have time for one more question.
That was my 7 minutes?
One more question.
I want to be able to say first off that I know that in the past you've been very supportive of Mount Vernon community, and we've all been very appreciative of you. And I appreciate the other question, and I appreciate your answer about the gift card circumstance. But I guess what I'm having a difficult time reconciling since that episode is the fact that, you know, on your campaign finance reporting, you had 11 amendments with a discrepancy of almost $100,000 in a period of 3 months of 11 amendments to the reports. And, you know, and I know you said you were surprised by that, but, you know, I just want to know that whoever I'm supporting is having people that are managing the city or bringing people in, whether it's your campaign or whether it's the city, that you are managing the finances of this city, because honestly, there's a lot of like bleed, you know, in terms of finance, and people, this room is a testament to why people are really upset. Donald Trump is not making the headlines because he's not, and at the end of the day, so...
Sir, can you ask your question?
The question is, so the question
I
is...
think I understood this question.
I'm just, it's a frustration.
Because sometimes everything that you read is not correct. And let me just clarify this. First and foremost, and I shared this morning on the radio. When I found out about the discrepancy because of a software glitch where they changed the state change from one software to the other, I immediately had a company come on board and clear that up. We worked with the executive director, who was quoted in the paper, and went through item by item with that individual. So part of this tactic, sir, I'm sorry, is that there are individuals who are part of the Democratic Party who don't want to see me move forward and try to tear me down. But I'm not going to allow that to happen, because we cleared that up once we got it straight right away because of a software glitch, and we straightened it out. And that's what happened.
I appreciate the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Questioners, we're going to encourage you to just keep it to questions. I know everyone has a lot to say. We would like a dialogue, but we cannot have that here tonight. Please just keep it to questions so that the candidates can speak and we can hear from all the candidates tonight. Next up, we have Elizabeth Embry.
So thank you, Brian, and thank you, Karen, for having me, and thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Elizabeth Embry. I'm running for mayor, and I've spent my life in Baltimore, and I've spent my career in government, and I've spent my career in the courtrooms, in the trenches, doing the actual work of government, making our communities safe, strengthening our workforce, and bringing affordable housing to communities that need it. And I am running for mayor because I love this city so much, and because I have seen the failures of leadership for so long, and I've seen how city government is too often the vacuum in the center of what works in this city, the amazing neighborhoods like this one, the amazing institutions and nonprofits that are doing such phenomenal work in the city. And we need a city government that is equal to the efforts of the people in the city, equal to your efforts, equal to your needs. I'm sorry, can you hear? I raise it. So I'm excited to be here tonight. I want to talk for a minute about my background in public safety, and then I want to talk about this neighborhood specifically and what I think is needed in this neighborhood to support the work that's being done here. So I have, as I said, I've spent my career in government, mostly in city government. I've been a prosecutor, a line prosecutor handling violent crimes, but also deputy state's attorney. And as deputy state's attorney in the last administration, we reduced crime in partnership with law enforcement to levels not seen in almost 40 years. It was an historic drop, and we had homicides under 200 for the first time in almost 4 decades. That's incredible. And we also focused on property crime and crimes that were afflicting neighborhoods across the city, and we saw historic reductions. And we did it, it's important to note, at the same time that we cut arrests in half, at the same time that we diverted thousands of additional nonviolent drug offenses out of the system into the public health system where they belong. And it's proved in Baltimore, as it has proved across the nation, that public safety does not demand mass incarceration and does not demand zero tolerance. In fact, smart policing and progressive approaches to criminal justice make our city safer. So I'm very proud of the work I did there. I've also worked at the Department of Labor, working on how to make our workforce stronger and align with the jobs that exist and the jobs that are coming. I worked in New York City at the Housing Department on affordable housing financing and how to get private dollars into neighborhoods. And I've also worked in City Hall as a lawyer, as the director of the Mayor's Office in Criminal Justice, and I've worked all told for 2 state's attorneys, for 2 mayors, and for a governor, and I've seen what works. I've seen how important management is. I've managed over 400 people. I've managed complex budgets, complex federal and state grants. And I've seen how easy it is in city government for progress to stall when you don't have a leader who is motivated every day and every second to drive the city forward, to focus on the small things, on the potholes and the trash, but also on the big things, and aligning all the efforts in this city around what matters. And that means addressing the concentrations of poverty in the city, the disparities in our system, the unbelievable staggering disparities across the city, the fact that a child who's born in Roland Park has a life expectancy 20 years longer than a child born in West Baltimore. And as mayor, I will devote every minute of every day to addressing those disparities through every lens of city government, from housing to criminal justice, to our public health system. And in the criminal justice system, there are examples, and I talk about this in my, my crime plan, which has come out, and I encourage you to read, and the Sun has said, you know, is the best that exists in the race, because it's focused not just on how do you drive down violence and gun crime and property crime, but also how do you invest in our communities, and how do you intervene in effective ways with juveniles to keep them out of the system, with people returning from prison, and with our and how do we police effectively around drugs? Because we acknowledge that the war on drugs has been a failure in terms of driving down use, driving down purity, driving down rates, but we haven't changed the way we police around that. And we have to follow the lead of other cities and be smarter and more effective and focus our resources on what matters to communities. So I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about Mount Vernon, because this is an amazing, is it 4 minutes? Okay, 4 minutes, thank you. This is an amazing community, and I got to know it. I mean, I've grown up here, I've spent a lot of time here, but I got to know it in terms of a community when I worked on the bottle club problem in this building. And at that time, I was a lawyer for the city, and we were looking at how do we help communities solve their own problems. And specifically in this community, the lounge in the basement of this building was a public health problem, and the city was not responding to the need of the community and not thinking creatively. And so I worked very closely with Jason and with others in this community, not only to deal with that, with the lounge, the bottle club in this building, but also to pass legislation at the state level to make it illegal for bottle clubs to operate. And what's important about that is, A, it's a story about working with communities, but it's also a story about looking at the problem as a systemic problem and addressing it not just for this community, but for the city as a whole, and in fact the state as a whole. Mount Vernon is amazing, but it could be even better with the support of city government, effective support. From the small things like having immediate responses to 311 complaints, trash pickup, public safety responses, but also to helping make this neighborhood even more walkable, because this is one of the most beautiful and productive and sustainable communities in the city. And we have an amazing Charles Street corridor. We have streets like Reed Street that are thriving and businesses love, but we're not connected as a whole in terms of making the whole neighborhood truly walkable and truly safe. And so I look forward to working with this community around all of the needs of this community specifically, and how to make this an even more successful neighborhood and protect the historic character and the amazing people of this neighborhood. I'm going to stop talking now and answer questions, but again, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
We have time for one question.
Hope it's a good one.
My question is simple. You're
Yeah.
an attorney, you're
Yeah.
a prosecutor. Would you have arrested and charged the 6 officers in the killings of Vernon?
That's a hard. So as a prosecutor, I can't answer that because I would never, ever be so irresponsible as to answer that question without being inside of the case and knowing the facts of the case.
We have time for one more question.
Yes.
Hi, Embry. My name is Belvedere from the Belvedere community. In the last year, I went to 3 candlelight vigils. One of a young man who was just getting off of work, trying to get home to his family, and some youngsters found amongst themselves to not only take his cell phone, his wallet, but more importantly, his life. I was there with his mom, and she cried tears. I went to another candlelight vigil of a woman, who lost her life and her son's life because someone felt as though they wanted to come in their home and take their lives. And the little boy didn't even make it to school that day or his 7th birthday. They were also my cousin. And the third one I went to was of a little girl who just being on the porch of her home, just playing on the porch, a young child who couldn't even make it to her 4th birthday, Mackenzie Elliott. But I want to know from you, even though you have a really big shoe to fill, because you didn't create all these problems. You dealt with the criminals. You helped the prosecutor. You helped gather the facts.
Yeah.
But you didn't create the problems that we now face every day. Can you help us face options?
Thank you so much. And first of all, I have to say I am also from Better Waverly, one of the greatest neighborhoods in the city, and but we have seen so much violence, and that's part of what's motivated me to run, because I know we can do better, and we cannot move forward as a city unless we are a safe city. We just can't. It's destroying lives. It's taking the lives of our sisters and mothers and fathers and sons. We have to do better. I know we can because I've done it before. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Patrick Gutierrez.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Gutierrez, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm running for mayor because, as the father of 2 young daughters, I want a better city for them and for everyone who lives here. And like so many other people living here, I am fed up with the way this city has been run. I'm fed up with the way people have been treated. I'm fed up with the way our money has been wasted. And I'm fed up with the way our needs have been ignored. Thank you. The office of the mayor has the responsibility to set the standard for how the entire city is going to be viewed. And previous mayors have set a very low bar. We deserve better. And as somebody who has been a proven change agent his entire career, and who was trained specifically to go in and turn around poor performing operations and been successful doing it everywhere he's been, I will raise that standard. I will raise that bar. Now, you're going to hear a lot of talk tonight about ideas. We all have ideas, ideas, ideas. But we've heard all these same ideas before. They're not new. Yes, we need to get violent criminals off the street. Yes, we need to improve our education system. Yes, we need to create more jobs. We hear these ideas all the time. Do you know what we don't get? Results. We deserve results. And in my entire career, I was judged on one thing and one thing only: results. I want to give you all an example of this. So we talk about improving community policing, right? One of the ideas that the city has had to do this is the Police Explorers program, where they introduce the police department and all the aspects of it to people ages 14 to 20 with the goal of hiring them from the program into the police department. I've been here 17 years, And do you know how many people they've hired from that program into the police department in 17 years? Zero. Enough ideas. We deserve results. It was a great idea to upgrade the phone system at City Hall. Poor leadership cost us $1 million plus. It was a great idea to have red light cameras operating in the city. Poor leadership cost us several $100,000 in revenue. So enough with the ideas. Let's elect somebody who has a proven track record of actually taking these ideas and turning them into results we can feel, we can see, and we can touch every single day we wake up. Now, I am not a lifelong Baltimorean. I was born and raised in Indio, California. I consider that town to be my mom because that's who raised me. But Baltimore is my wife. That's the city I choose to love. And I wake up every day happily married to her, and I see the road that we are headed down, and I know we can do better. We do not have a resource problem in this city, ladies and gentlemen. We have a resource management problem. I was taught specifically how to go into operations and turn them around by bringing specific tools to the table, changing workplace cultures, instituting performance-based standards so every employee, from the police chief to the permit clerk, knows what's expected of them, and holding them accountable to make sure they do the jobs we're paying them for. That's what I've done my entire career, and that's what I will do as your mayor if you elect me. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with you a bit about my vision for the city. If you'd like more information, you can go to abetterbaltimore.org and check out my website and listen to my song. Yes, I have a song, I Want a Better Baltimore. And now I'd like to open up the floor to any questions you guys have, but thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Right, thank you for that question. So in 10 years of operations management with Bank of America, I was sent all around the country to improve poor performing operations. It didn't matter what the operation was. It was check processing in Los Angeles, then it was cash processing in Los Angeles. Then it was check processing in Portland, Oregon, then it was payment processing right here in Baltimore in an operation on the 18th floor of 225 North Calvert Street that was so bad when I got there, the nickname was Cell Block 18. And I went in there and instituted the things that I talked about and brought in leaders who knew how to manage employees and get the most out of them, gave employees the tools, the training, and the resources they needed to do a good job, treated employees with respect and humanity, and encouraged them to do a great job. And they did, and everybody was happy. The customers were happy, the employees were happy, and my bosses were happy. I've done that my entire career, taken operations from worst to first, and I'll do the same thing in the city because the last time I checked, it's still about people, and it's still about processes, and it's about getting the most out of both. That's what I do for a living. Please let me do that as your mayor. Thank you.
We have time for one more question, one quick question.
Yes, sir, in the beautiful flower shirt.
What did you do about predatory lending when you were mayor?
Yes. All right. I was not on the lending side, but I'll tell you a quick story. I was a vice president, and I was making quite a good salary, and I was working for the bank. They would not loan me $100,000 to buy my row home unless I got 2 small dings from my credit fixed. That's the type of tight security we had on our lending process. That was in 2001. 3 years later, my girlfriend at the time was being offered $400,000 mortgage. She made half as much as me. Her credit was half as good. And the banks were just rubber stamping them and signing them, and you can ignore that. So I actually sent an email to everyone in my building, and I said, we need to watch out for this predatory lending. Because what's happening here is people are getting loans that they can't qualify for, And there's a bill that's going to become due. Luckily, I talked my girlfriend out of getting that loan, and I tried to talk as many people as I could. You're right. That was a terrible, terrible situation, and people should be held accountable for that and be sent to jail for that.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you. If you have any more questions, patrick@abetterbaltimore.org. I answer all my emails personally. Thank you very much, everyone.
Next, we'd like to welcome DeRay McKesson.
Thank you for the invitation. 15 years ago, I began my organizing work here in Baltimore, my hometown. I was younger then. And in those days, I learned about the promise and possibility of the city. 2 years ago, I got up off my couch because I saw what was happening in another city in St. Louis, in Ferguson. And I asked myself, how long was I willing to wait to make a difference, to stand up? And, I went down there and I stood with people who were demanding something different of the government. And I became, along with so many other people, someone who knew that there was a better world out there and somebody who was willing to fight for it. When I think about why I'm here today, it's because of that central question about how long are we willing to wait for a better world. And I love this city. It's a city where I was born and raised, where I live, where my family lives, where my family's from. And I've watched it continue to be a city that just isn't working for people. It's not working for people when there are over 300 deaths. It's not working for people when Freddie Gray and Tyrone West are dead. It's not working for people when the school system isn't meeting our needs or our kids' needs. And I'm running for the same reason I decided to teach, the same reason I initially went to St. Louis and Ferguson, and it was because I saw something unacceptable and I said I got to do something about it. And in this moment, I see something unacceptable and I know that together we can do something about it. This isn't yet the Baltimore we deserve, but it can be. It's such a city of promise and possibility. There's so much here to work with. And when I think about what it means to be the mayor, it is about making this city a city that works for people, a city that's better for people. And it's not just talking about it, but it's doing it. So you'll see the platform that I've released, just the first 3 buckets. There are 5 more buckets to come, but it ranges from homelessness to poverty to work around the environment and arts and culture, because all of those things matter. You should see yourself in the plans of people who say that they can lead the city, because at the core, it's about making the city work for people. And that's what I'm running to do. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a former elected official. I'm an activist. I'm a son of Baltimore. I'm somebody who has been in this city and in other cities across the country demanding that the city works for people, and I'm ready to do it here. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm from St. Louis. My name is Kenji Scott. In 2012, Anthony Anderson was killed by the Baltimore City Police. In 2013, Tyrone West was killed by the Baltimore City Police. In 2014, George King was killed by Baltimore City Police. Why did you have to go to St. Louis when you could have did it right here? And when you talk about being an activist, where have you been in Baltimore City? Because you're a school teacher. Now, we need school teachers and black men in our classrooms. Why are you absent in this city? And then today, you come and take charge. I don't support all these folk up here, but you come and you indict them when you haven't been visible in this city. Why are you running for mayor of our city? Thank you.
So interesting question. What I'll remind you is that I began my organizing work in this city in 1999 when I was just a teenager. And I was a youth organizer in communities across the city. I worked for the school system here. I also read for most of the nonprofits here in the city, working specifically around issues of after-school access. And when I think about what it means to wake up or be woke about issues, is that it wasn't until the death of Mike Brown that I understood police violence to be as pervasive across the country as it was. I was here in Baltimore in 2009 and got pulled over by a police officer, and he came to my window with his gun drawn. And in that moment, I thought that this was like an isolated event. I didn't understand that that was happening all across communities or happening here in the city. So I'm also not arrogant enough to believe that just because I'm not doing the work in some ways that other people are, or vice versa, that the work's not being done. So there are people who've been organizing in the city in incredible ways. I think that most recently, my work has been around the policy work. So we created the first public database of police union contracts and some other things, specifically focusing on cities like Baltimore. So I've not been absent, but I would say is that I've been doing the work differently than I started out doing when I did it more direct service in communities day to day. But again, we can do the work and we can attack these problems in many ways.
So, DeRay, one thing that I don't see in your bio or in any of the articles about you is your relationship with Teach for America. And I want to know, what is your thought about education? Do you still support the corporatization of our education that Teach for America purports? Do you support busting teachers' unions and lowering their pay? And how much money have you gotten from Teach for America over the past 2 years? What we want to know.
So good question. As you know, I was a special assistant in the Office of Human Capital here for the school system, so I managed the day-to-day of the Office of Human Capital. Remember, the school system is a $1 billion organization with 200 schools, 12,000 employees. When I think about Teach for America, I was a core member in Teach for America. I taught in East New York, Brooklyn. And Teach for America remains a large recruiter of teachers across the country. Here in the city, when I led the day-to-day of Human Capital, Teach for America provided a lot of teachers in the city, and I support Teach for America's work generally. Remember, in Baltimore City, all the teachers are members of the union, and I believe in unions. I was a chapter leader for the UFT, the largest teachers union in America, and I continue to believe in unions. So, I don't know where this idea that I believe in the privatization of schools comes from. Charter schools here, again, everybody's in a union. I think that this is actually the model for how these schools should work if we have it happen in terms of how we think about pipeline programs. But I'm not against Teach for America. I was a core member. I think that, like most organizations, it is an imperfect organization, and people should push it to be better.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Yep, so I want to be mindful to note that City Hall doesn't run North Avenue, but in terms of what I think about education is that there are many pipelines to become a teacher. So in city schools, there's also BCTR, which is a pathway for career changers to come into the classroom. And there are also a lot of great college partners, university partners, and I believe that it's important that there's a diversity in pipeline programs. The Teach for America numbers here are declining, so there is something happening around Teach for America in terms of the declining numbers in the core. But I think that it's important to have a diversity of pipeline programs. The research doesn't show that any one pipeline has disproportionately positive impact on students. The data just doesn't show that. But I do support the wage scale. The wage scale for teachers here in Baltimore City is higher than most other urban places. And when we think about the model teacher program, it's a model in terms of how we compensate teachers across the country. There are many cities that aren't doing that at all.
Yeah, because we take about 75% of our pay to pay for supplies in the schools.
Yeah, so I'm the first person to say that schools should be funded more. Like, I would never say that. They should definitely be funded more. And the city barely meets its obligation, the state obligation. So we should figure out how to do that. And part of that is managing the formula around the ding and tiffs that happened, that I think will do some of it. But we should figure out how to increase the funding for schools. I agree.
Thank you, Mr. McKesson. That is over 8 minutes. We're going to have to move on to the next candidate. Everyone, thank Mr. McKesson. Next up, we have Councilman Nick Mosby.
First and foremost, thank you to Mount Vernon Belvedere Association and the Charles Street Development Corporation for providing us with this forum. My name is Councilman Nick Mosby. I represent part of West Baltimore. What I will say tonight is we have a major chance at getting this right. In the past, we've always known exactly who our mayor was going to be. We kind of knew who was waiting in the wing, who was going to be up next. But in this particular election, Baltimore has a true chance to elect a mayor to send us in a new trajectory. When we look at it, there's a lot of candidates in the race. There's a lot of quality and a lot of candidates in the race. But there's really two clear choices. One choice is if we can go back to business as usual, the failed policies of the past, and we can continue down and to see stagnant growth and decline in our city. We can pat ourselves on the back when the numbers are low and run around and figure out why the numbers are going back up related to crime. Or we can say we're going to develop a way where we're going to forever change the trajectory of our city. We're going to go after the new ideas. We're going to go after a fresh perspective. We're going to go after true change. And if that's the solution, that's me. I'm born and raised here in the city of Baltimore, product of Baltimore City Public Schools. I grew up in Northeast Baltimore to a 3-bedroom house with 6 women. Was man of my house since day one. I tell folks all the time. My grandmother, she was the matriarch of our family. She had a 7th grade education. She was the domestic worker here in the city of Baltimore. My mother, which I shared a bedroom with, my sister till the 8th grade, she worked over 36 years at Social Security. I watched her every single day wake up at 4:30 a.m. to catch 2 buses from Northeast Baltimore to Woodlawn to put food on our table and provide me the opportunity to stand across from you today. Because of that, I had the opportunity to go to college. First person in my family to go to college, came back with a degree in electrical engineering. Could have moved anywhere in Baltimore, but I decided to move in Reservoir Hill. In Reservoir Hill, I bought a house that was abandoned for almost 20 years. My next door neighbor was an abandoned house. All the houses across the street were abandoned. There was an open-air drug market in the front and illegal dumping in the back. And we lived next to an apartment building called Murder Mall. I tell you that story because we decided to move to Reservoir Hill and pick that particular house because the city had turned its back on my block, on my corner, on my particular house. But I saw my community and my house much more than what the city saw. I saw an amazing park in Druid Hill Park. I saw multimodal transportation through the light rail and through the subway and close proximity to Penn Station. I saw Micah, University of Baltimore, and Coppin State as huge assets, and also the Central Business District and our proximity to it. It had all the amazing characteristics of an amazing community, yet the city had decided to turn its back on it. As the next mayor of Baltimore, we're going to think smarter and we're going to think harder. And I tell folks this all the time. To the teacher that's been dipping in their pocket to provide resources to the class, I know you. You are my teacher. To the mother who sits by her phone wondering if their child has made it home safely from school, I know you. You were my mother. To the child who's trapped in his 7th grade classroom with all these dreams of becoming an engineer in his head, but knowing he's not getting trained with the proper education from the Baltimore City's public school, I know you because I was that child. Now and more than ever, we need someone to come into City Hall to connect the dots. And that's why I developed a comprehensive plan. I'm the first person on the stage and the only person on the stage that has developed a comprehensive plan to go through all the interwoven issues in our city. See, it's one thing to say that we want to fix our school system, but if we aren't serious about calling out lead paint poisoning as a public nuisance problem, we're not trying to address the issue. If we want to say we want a better school system, but we don't have access to workforce development and jobs upon creation of that, we're not really going after the issue. If we say that we want to tackle crime, but we're not dealing with the root of crime, meaning poverty, we don't have an issue. If we say that we need 10,000 jobs here in the city of Baltimore, yet we don't have a transportation system to provide folks access to those jobs, we're not dealing with the issues. So now, more than ever, we need a plan, we need a comprehensive plan, and it's not a political plan. It's not something to just say we need safer streets or cleaner communities or better schools. We need folks to lay out the details, and that's exactly what I did in my 15-point plan. I ask you to go to my website. It's mosbyformayor.com. Thank you.
Questions?
So the question is, do I see a problem as mayor and my wife being the state's attorney? So I think the Baltimore Sun did it best when after I announced, they wrote a whole article on it, and they said it's absolutely no conflict of interest. When you look at it from a budgetary perspective, the mayor, yes, sets the budget for the entire city. The state's attorney's budget is 1/10 of 1 percentage point of the entire budget. We also know that through the process of approval of the budget, it has to go to the Baltimore City Council. The checks and balance system is in place. The City Council has the power to pull anything out of the budget, but they also have to approve that budget to go forward. From a prosecutorial perspective, we understand and know that, that there is an agency in the state called the state prosecutor that if I'm ever brought up on any malfeasance, misconduct in office, or any type of misappropriation of funds, myself or anyone else in my administration, that it would be the state prosecutor who would prosecute me. During the past administration, when a mayor was investigated, indicted, and then ultimately convicted, it wasn't the state's attorney who did that, it was actually the state prosecutor. So I think it's very important. There's absolutely no conflict of interest.
One more question.
You said just now that you clearly don't want to go back to business as usual, but you took city council seat in 2011, I believe.
Correct.
And it's been, as far as I'm concerned, business as usual ever since you've been a city councilman. Your plans as mayor aren't bad. However, I'm very disappointed that you've decided to run for mayor to get these plans implemented. My question to you was, where was this 15-point plan as a city councilman, and why do you think that you running as mayor will change that if you're already in City Hall?
That's a great question. So first I'll say, that's a great question. I absolutely love my job as a city councilman. I love my district. We've been able to do a lot of amazing things in my district. I mean, but we need to be very clear. There's one person based off of the city charter that has the ability to really connect the dots and really go after the systemic and structural issues that have plagued our community for far too long. From schooling, to policing, to community development, to job opportunity, and that's the mayor of Baltimore. And that's why I've decided to run for the mayor of Baltimore. I've been in City Hall long enough to see the deficiencies, to see the problems, but I haven't been there long enough to allow them to cloud my judgment, and that's why I'm running for mayor for the city of Baltimore.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Thank you. Next up, we have State Senator Catherine Pugh.
Thank you all for this opportunity to be here with you all this evening. I cannot tell you how excited I am about becoming the next mayor of Baltimore. First of all, let me just say, before you even look at becoming mayor of Baltimore, I think you have to assess where we are. And I've done that. And I have all the plans up on my website as well. But let me just tell you where we are. First of all, when we talk about property tax reduction, we are on a trajectory now to reduce property tax by this administration by 28 cents. That's not enough, but we're moving forward. When we talk about our school system, you know, I talk about the mayor being responsible for the school system, taking back that accountability, because, and it doesn't affect how much money we get from the state, because we're under a formula that needs to be revisited, because it is wealth-based as opposed to poverty-based. And we stand to lose about $24 million this year because of the formula. But we need to take control, because the teachers who take money out of their pocket shouldn't be doing that. And when we look at what other jurisdictions around our state are doing, they are dedicating 35% to 50% of their budgets to the school system, and we ought to be doing the same. But let me go back and just tell you how I got to where I am today. I came to Baltimore as a teenager and entered Morgan State University, and I left as an adult with a master's degree in business administration. I started out in banking, but I got the opportunity to work for one of the greatest mayors of all, William Donald Schaefer. I was the person responsible for creating neighborhood watch programs and citizen patrol programs all across the city. When I went to city council, you know, I started the Baltimore Marathon. I created the Fish Out of Water project that raised $1 million and wired our classrooms. As the state senator, I've given away $2 million in scholarships in my community. And so all I'm asking you all to do, if you want somebody who is of action, someone who will move the city forward, who's always been inclusive in terms of our ideas and getting folks to do things together, I've sat down with every single president of every university in this city. You know why? Because we don't keep our young people in our city. The fastest growing populations in this city are 18 to 35 and 55 years of age and older. And when children and when parents start talking about their children and taking them to our schools, they leave. We need to make our school system even better, so that not only are teachers not taking money out of their pockets, but that we acknowledge that there are different styles of teaching. I love the Montessori style of teaching. I think it's a great philosophy. I built the first new school in this city in 30 years, the Baltimore Design School. And I'm excited about what we do there. And we can do more in this city by getting everybody to work together. When we talk about crime and the issues facing our city, we've got to talk about community policing. We got to talk about the 60,000 folks in our city who are substance abusers. We got to talk about the fact that this city among the state are the 38th worst state in this country for ex-offenders to come back home to. And so when we talk about how do we reduce our problems as it relates to substance abuse, what are we going to do about our children? And I'm talking about year-round opportunities for our young people to work. You know why? Because we have homeless children in our school system. We have children who have to work. We have drug dealers recruiting them at the age of 8, and we've got to get in front of the problem and not behind it. And so I'm going to be working 24/7 nonstop to make this the greatest city ever, because I've made my district one of the best districts in terms of trying to make sure that every child and adult who wants an education gets one, because I provided over $2 million in scholarships. I want to stop so I can answer some questions, but I can tell you, I cannot be more excited about the opportunity to lead this city, to bring people together, to create an economic strategy that provides jobs and opportunities for every single person in the city who wants and needs to work. That's what Catherine Pugh will do. This is my city. I love it. Give me the opportunity to be your mayor. Yes, sir. Okay, let me talk about a couple things. When I was running about 5 years ago, I stopped at a local business, asked the guy if I could put a sign up, and he said yes. He said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "No." He said, "You were my graduation speaker, and you know, as an elected official, you get a chance to do a lot of those." And so I'm thinking high school, college. He said, "No, in prison." He said, "But I never forgot what you said, Senator. Here's what you said. Congratulations, you got your GED, but let me just tell you, you got a hard road to hoe. But if you have the capacity to start a business, do so. Because nobody walks into anybody's business and asks them what their background is. What they care about is your quality of service. Do good service." He said, "That was me 5 years ago. That's one business, and when you get through, I want you to go put a sign on another business." But this is what I mean about somebody who takes action. So I wrote a piece of legislation that got signed by Governor Hogan last session, okay, to create opportunities for ex-offenders, I call them returning citizens, to start their own businesses. When President Obama asked me to sit with the First Lady during the State of the Union address last year, he said it was not just because of the work that you've done locally, it's because of the work that you've done in the state and because of the work you've done in this nation as the President of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. For me, it's about bridging the gaps. It's about creating opportunities. When you talk about TIF projects in this city, I don't have a problem with a great downtown. But we can take some of those projects and put them in our neighborhoods. And we can take dollar house programs, we can bring back dollar house programs, and we can get folks to work and creating businesses and opportunities. I know I can do this job. I just want the opportunity. Thank you.
We have time for one quick question.
Hello.
Hi.
You say that you've provided a great education for everyone in your district.
Yes.
Right now, we know that this week, city schools have been plagued with a lack of heat in their schools. Are you telling me that you are sure that each of the schools in your district has heat and that you have done everything possible to make sure?
No, that's not what I said, love. What I said was that I've provided scholarships for everyone in my district who has asked me for a scholarship. From 18 to 80, check the record, over $2 million in scholarships. No, I built the Baltimore Design School because I gave the city an example of what a great school can look like, because we have running water, because we have air conditioning, and because we have light. And I didn't wait for the money to come back from the state. You know, the $1 billion that we brought back now from the state to build 23 new schools. I built a brand new school before the city even went to the state to build the new school. I know I can do this job. I just want the opportunity to do it.
Thank you, Senator Pugh.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilman Carl Stokes.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Mount Vernon. Thank you, Charles Development Corporation, Charles Street Development Corporation, for inviting us out this evening. I'm Carl Stokes. I am a member of the City Council. I've been back in the council for the last 5 years. I've always thought that I would try to be a citizen legislator. So I was a small businessman. I still am. And I entered and served 2 terms and self-term limited myself some years ago. I've been out of politics for 15 years. I did run for mayor. I did not win, but I had left already politics, and then I've been out for 15 years. And in that time I was out, I opened a charter school for boys, 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, because I am not satisfied with what is going on in public schools in Baltimore City by and large. There are about 20 to 25 schools that are really strong, that are really good, but we have 180 schools in the city. I did start a school. We were open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week. We were half a day Saturday, and we were there 12 months a year. In the first year, I did have to raise $1.2 million to do all of the extra stuff that we wanted to do, like mental health, social services. Every kid had to play in the band. We gave every kid an instrument. They learned how to play. We did debate. We did robotics. We did a lot of things. When I came back to City Council 5 years ago, in the first 10 days that I was back in City Council, the mayor said, we're going to close 15 rec centers, 6 pools, and we're going to cut the hours on everything else. And I said, why would you do that? And she said, because we don't have enough money. And I said, are you sure? And she says, you think you can find it, smart ass? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to go over and try to find it. I'm going to go over and go through the books. I'm going to look every penny. I'm going to see if there's a place that we can find some money to keep these pools open and these rec centers open. I'm going to try to do that. And when I went over and asked for the books, they couldn't give me books. They couldn't give me financials. And I said, okay, just give me the last 3 years of audits, and we'll work from there. And they said, we don't do audits. And I said, you don't do audits? I'm a small business guy. I also ran 2 nonprofits, and I know that the federal government insists that $25,000 of transactions on a nonprofit, by law, you have to do an audit annually. Anyway, you know the rest of the story. I put a bill into City Council demanding that we audit every penny of the taxpayers' money. And lo and behold, the greater majority of the City Council turned it down. They said, no, we don't need to do audits. I was stunned. I lost. But then with my friend, colleague, Jack Young, we resurrected a bill that said every 4 years we would audit 13 of the audits. Well, when elected mayor, I will ignore that law because it doesn't even begin to do what we need to do. I will, by executive order, audit every penny of the taxpayer dollar. At least one go round. And then we'll come back and determine what we have to do. In my 2nd year in City Council, there's a billionaire who walked into my office and said, I chair Taxation, Finance, Economic Development, and said, I want the taxpayer money. I want what would turn out to be $250 million in no taxes being paid for 30 years. And I said, why? And then they offered a reason. He said because his investors on the plan that he had already would give about 13% back in interest. And he didn't think that was good enough to bring investors in. And they wanted 17% instead. 8% generally is a good number. And they wanted 17%. And I stood and fought that. And I said, I don't want to do it at all, but if we're going to do it, I want you to give money to City Springs Elementary School. I want you to build a rec center. I want you to give first preference to the people who live in Perkins homes, and you help them with job training, and that we give them jobs, and we make this outer harbor neighborhoods at least gain something, and not just the inner harbor neighborhoods. And I think the inner harbor is great, and we should continue to build it. But I know that the neighborhoods in Northeast and Southwest and Northwest and Southeast also need some love and attention. And I fought, and I fought, and I fought, and I lost that battle also because the majority of my colleagues and the mayor said, we just need to give the guy the money. So I'm here tonight because I'm telling you that I'm the guy who's going to stand up and stay standing up. Let the wind blow as hard as it can. I may bend, but I'm not going to break. I want to be your mayor so that we change our city for all of our neighborhoods and for all of our citizens. I want to be the guy who fights for the most vulnerable among us, as well as those who are doing well by us. Thank you. Carl Stokes.
We have time for one question.
Again, carlstokes2016.com, carlstokes2016.com. Thank you so much.
Time for one question. I'll happily ask one.
I'm sorry, you got it?
Yes,
Okay,
Councilman
Brian.
Stokes, what will you do to help improve the walkability of Mount Vernon and other urban neighborhoods within Baltimore?
Thank you. First of all, whether it's on the street or in school, this is not a direct, but I will come to it. You know, we're soft on crime. I know people don't expect me to say something like that, but this city is soft on crime, whether it's on the street or in the schools. Teachers and kids in schools have a right, an expectation that they can be in their schools safely and that they can get an education, that teachers can teach. And I'm telling you, out here on the street, beginning with the small nuisance crimes that we just let go by, we've got to change how we police in our city, not just the bigger issues that we hear about, but small things. Now, walkability. First of all, safety is a primary factor, which means you got to have men and women in blue who are on the street, who know you, who know everybody in the room, frankly, and know the businesses, and are working with the people on the street every day, know the alleys, know the good people, know the not so good people, etc. Walkability. We got to do traffic calming in such a way that of course, people are driving in and out of the city, but they have to, and we can talk about two-way streets, we can talk about other traffic calming method, but we got to have the bike lanes that work, pedestrian safety. I know you're buzzing me, and I don't want to get in trouble. So, Brian, if I'll stop.
Great answer. Thank you, Councilman Stokes. Thank you. Next up, everyone, we're going to have an intermission shortly. If you are going to leave before the end of today's event, please wait at least until this intermission after these next three candidates. Next, we have Mr. David Warnock.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to my friends. I am proud to call this neighborhood the headquarters of my campaign, and I really appreciate you putting this on tonight. I really am the guy that came to Baltimore 33 years ago in that pickup truck, and this city has given me everything that I have. I believe in Baltimore. Yeah, and this is the most important election in a generation. It will determine how we view each other, how we view this city, and yes, how the world views us. I have a plan for this city, davidwarnockformayor.com. But if you remember three things about me tonight, remember this. First, I'm about jobs and opportunity. For 15 years, I've been the chairman of the Center for Urban Families up on Monroe Street. I was the co-founder of Green Street Academy, which is now the most chosen middle school in the city. Second, I'm about real change and transparency because we are way overdue for real change. And three, I deliver on my promises. Now that's the kind of leadership that we need in City Hall. Running for mayor is the culmination in many ways of my life's work. For 33 years, I've been connecting people, rolling up my sleeves, starting businesses, moving this city forward. The organizations that I've been involved with have either employed or helped to employ literally thousands of people. So if you remember three things about me tonight, I'll reiterate. I'm about jobs and I'm about opportunity. I'm about real change and transparency. And I deliver on my promises. And I believe in my heart that we together will write the greatest turnaround story in America, right here in Baltimore, now. Thank you.
We have plenty of time for questions. You want to come up to the mic?
I've listened to the candidates this evening. The candidates all want change. The candidates all have great ideas. The candidates all have plans of how they're going to implement it. We have only one mayor who can be elected. We have a bunch of candidates who have many ideas. If you are elected mayor, would you hire any of those individuals who have presented ideas of how we can move this city forward?
Well, I'll tell you this. I told DeRay tonight when we were talking up here that I expected to steal his best ideas, and I expected him to steal my best ideas, and I've said that to other candidates who are up here tonight. You know, this is an election about creating accountability and leadership in City Hall. This is an election it's about creating a culture of customer service that simply doesn't exist in City Hall. This is an election about respect for each other, about respect for a city government that time and time again is inadequate in the respect department. And it's about building a culture of promote from within. We need to build a city government where people are proud to work. People are proud to build a career. We can do that in our city.
Does someone else have another question for Mr. Warnock? We have a question right here.
You know what, in my administration, we will bring the best and the brightest. Everywhere I go in this city, I'm on a 276 neighborhood, 43-day tour of our city. The talent that resides in our city is extraordinary. The talent that resides up here is extraordinary, as is the talent in this room. As mayor of this city, it will be my responsibility to draw the best and the brightest in city government. And clearly, there's best and the brightest that's sitting up here in front of us. Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is the issue I have, is that we hear a lot of rhetoric and philosophy, and that's kind of what got us here, a lot of ideologies. But what are you going to do that's pragmatic? Because you haven't said anything really to tell anybody in here what you would do for this city. And see, that's kind of where we are as citizens of this city, is we're tired of folk just talking to us and we're not seeing people produce. Give us something that's pragmatic, that you can implement, that you can get done.
Well, you know,
that's not a question, that's a statement.
You know, my dad told me once that character is what you do when the cameras aren't running. And not only will I tell you what I will do, I will tell you what I have done. I created a community school that's got 650 kids in it. I created a community school where our kids will get certifications in healthcare and energy and in technology, where we have mental health professionals on site, and we are paired up with a great faith-based institution. We will spread that throughout the city. I created a company called Green Job Works that's 40% owned by the Center for Urban Families and 60% owned by the management, that has 125 people doing demolition and remediation right now. They did the demolition and remediation when we restored the old 91. We will expand that program throughout the city because I see our housing problem as an opportunity to put people to work.
Everyone, thank Mr. Warnock. That is the time. Thank you, sir, so much. Next up, we have Wilton Wilson. Mr. Wilton Wilson.
Hello, everyone. I guess the
candidates before me let you all asleep. So let's live this thing up. My name is Wilton Wilson. I'm from Jamaica. I've been here for a while. I came to this city in '97 to go to school at Hopkins due to a divorce, end up on the street homeless. And to tell you the true fact, I spent a couple nights in this community, and I got help by people in this community. I don't think they will remember me, but I was helped by people in this community. Eventually, I went back to college, graduated from Hopkins. I'm a nurse. I went back to school and become a nurse practitioner, which I haven't even used yet. But the point is, this is more than about 4 years now since I last run for office. I ran for mayor the last time. And I guess if you look on that ballot, it was Wilton Wilson at the bottom. It was me. But I decided to run again at last minute because all I saw is the same people with the same ideas and the same thing they say they're going to do 4 years ago. And it's still, the city is at the same place. When I came to this city, I could walk around the street as a homeless person without no problem. You can't do that now. Violence everywhere. As a home care nurse, I go to people's houses in every community. I see all the problems that they faces. And when I tell them I'm going to run for mayor, they said, why do you want to go into something dirty like that? It's corrupt. You're a nice person. Why you want to do that? But I always say that there are good people out here can be in politics too. People who can reach out to people. You don't want to have a mayor who you can't touch. You want an open door policy. The bottom line to get the city moving is jobs, jobs, jobs. That's how it'll get me off the street, get me back in school, and where I'm at right now. So I'm asking for your vote this time to be the mayor of this city because I know what it takes to come from the bottom up. Before I came to this country, I was an accountant. Balancing budget based on the past mayor and the present mayor. The last mayor before her situation left a deficit in the budget. All of these things is based on priority. It's based on what you as a person believe in. These people are out of touch. And if you're a career politician and you see where our city is right now, how can you say you want to get a next chance? Your chance already gone. You're leadership of the past. We need new blood. We need fresh people who can relate to people who are feeling what's going on right now. Does anyone have any question?
Mr. Wilson, I'm from Mount Vernon. I've lived all over this town. I'm a product of a public school. I live here. I've got 4 friends on that panel. I don't want to ambush you or anyone else, but here's my question. If you look at this room, we're a rainbow, and no one has talked about how we can get together. It's all about education, and it starts with the parents. Starts with the leaders, but no one is talking about how this man and I can get together and talk about how to put things together to raise our city. No one has said that.
And that's why I was saying that open door policy is the best way to go. So that.
How do you do it, sir? How do you make this gentleman and I get together? How do you get us together so we can raise our children? We may have things in common. We may not know it. He may live on another side of town, but we have all of us. Have preconceived notions. He may not like me because of my hat. Okay? I may not like him because I don't like his shoes. On the other hand, how does this gentleman and I get together to make sure that the kids that we're raising can someday be in a place where we all are happy? How's that happen?
We have to have dialogue with each other and understand each other. We have differences, respect that based on culture, maybe religion or anything like that. Some people don't like me because of my hair.
You know, I'm kind of baiting you because the answer is education.
Yeah, but I already said that. I already said that.
I educate him on what I like. He educates me on what he likes. This gentleman may educate
And you have to come to a common ground. And you come to a
Thank
common
you for the
ground.
question. I think we have another question up here. Do you have a question, sir?
Yes, I do. Mr. Wilson, I'm going to ask you this question. Really, it's for all the candidates, but I'm going to ask you since you're the last person.
We heard a lot about jobs. Everybody want to have jobs. But one of the problems with jobs is we have a lot of people in the city who are not qualified for those jobs. So when you bring the jobs into the city, how will you make that connection for those who are not qualified for the jobs?
All right, we will have job training, and if you go to my website and you look up what I've said the last time, the first thing that I talk about was that when I look on the application, there's a section on there, ask if you're a felon or have you ever committed a crime before. And I talk about that in the last election and said, I think that statement should be get rid of. And so the councilman up here jumped on it and got rid of it, which was a great idea. But what I'm trying to say to you, in school where I'm from, every student are exposed to hands-on job training plus education, math, English, everything. So I think that they should introduce that into the schools here so that they, although you're a good chemistry person, you still can do a hands-on job too, so that it will prepare you for a situation that whenever it comes up. But so it should be introduced into the school, and that's where you should start from.
Brief question, real quick.
Hi, to follow up on the previous man's question regarding jobs, regarding training, what industries, what sectors of Baltimore's economy do you feel you can grow, you can develop, for which such job training and education can be made relevant?
That's a good question. The infrastructure in the city is very, very, very poor at this time. So we know that all those infrastructures going to need skilled people to take care of it. So what you have to do, you have to make a projection to fix this infrastructure, but you have to prepare the people to do it. So instead of have outside entity to come in to do it, you know that within 2 years you're going to be taking care of this sector of the infrastructure. You train people for it specifically, and you take it to the community. What I have learned in this city, a lot of people who would like to get work, but they're afraid to come out of their community. You have to go into their community. Not like this community is a very nice community and people interact with each other, but most of the community that I go to, people don't interact with each other because of whatever personal reason they are. So you would have to bring that job training to that community and say, look, this is what we're going to do, and if you want to be a part of it, you got to be trained this way.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We have one more candidate, and then we're going to take a brief intermission. Mr. Calvin Young.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for waiting all this time for me and for all of these candidates to be able to talk. My name is Calvin Young. I'm a candidate for mayor of Baltimore, and I'm running for mayor because we are in a state of emergency. Our city has faced 344 homicides last year, a $75 million budget deficit, and a quarter of our citizens live in poverty. That includes 42% of African American children. When I talk to people on the streets of Baltimore, they agree, as I do, that we are in need of new, fresh leadership for the future of our city. I'm born and raised here in Baltimore. I grew up in Hamilton in Northeast Baltimore to a single mother who's worked since 1992 as a correctional officer in the city jails. I went to Poly, studied mechanical engineering at New York University before working on Black Hawk helicopters and jet engines. I've managed large amounts of people and multi-million-dollar portfolios. I'm a former national chairman of the National Society of Black Engineers, so I've helped thousands of young people become excited and exposed to engineering and to become engineers themselves. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School, and I've worked at the White House at the National Economic Council, where I focused on manufacturing and small business policy. Now, you've heard from a lot of different people, and the difference between me and them is that they look at the past and ask why. I think about visions of the future and ask why not. I think about small business growth and the fact that Baltimore doesn't have a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurial activity, and the fact that access to capital is so tough, especially for people in African American communities. You know, 2/3 of our city are African American, but only 1/3 of businesses are owned by African Americans. That's nothing against anybody else, but I see an opportunity for us to create jobs right there. We need a world-class subway system. And imagine all the felons that we have in our city. Imagine if we can hire them, give them job training to make subways. That's 20 years of jobs right here to help change the way that things are happening in our city. And I want to see universal pre-kindergarten for our children. I want to see algebra by 7th grade, calculus by 11th grade. Because if you hit those three, you can literally be anything you want in the world. So again, my name is Calvin Young. You can learn more about me at electcalvinyoung.com. And I'm really happy to hear all the questions you may have. Thank you. Ma'am? Ma'am.
So Baltimore City has not elected a non-Democrat since the 1940s, and we have such serious problems with wealth inequality here. I have not heard any new ideas from the candidates that have spoken. There's a new solidarity economy that's growing up around the country that's reducing wealth inequality. I haven't heard any of that from you. So what I'm hoping, and my question for you, what are your new ideas to build community wealth in this community? But also for the people who are in this audience, we have 3 more groups of candidates who are going to speak. And I hope that everybody will understand that we need more than just one party in this town. And I hope that you will stay and listen to everyone.
So I appreciate your question. The part that I will focus on is around how to increase economic activity and wealth in the city. And again, I spoke about small business, spoke about my background working on small business policy. The 2 reasons that small businesses don't thrive is number 1, access to capital. People don't have the resources. And number 2, the wraparound services. People don't know how to make the right decisions. So what the city can do, the city can provide microfinancing loans to entrepreneurs. We can also create incubators, especially in poor neighborhoods. We have so many abandoned buildings. Let's take a few, let's give some of that space to entrepreneurs and help young people to become entrepreneurs so that then they can connect together, they can meet other entrepreneurs and get mentored in the right way so that they can start creating an economy that works. And granted, most businesses will fail, but it's not about the business, it's about the entrepreneur so that they can fail, start again, and eventually create successful businesses that could create jobs. I have a whole lot of other ideas around how you can take rec centers and you can, teach kids how to code and 3D print and additive manufacturing. Those are the types of things that can be done very cheaply, and it's bringing new technologies into the 21st century right here in Baltimore, and it works in other cities, but we don't do it here. We can bring those types of things here. It creates the economy. It creates exactly what you're talking about, new wealth. Thank you.
Hey, we have people here who are trying to do the right thing, trying to invest in housing, but are struggling with property taxes. How do you explain that there's organizations like Johns Hopkins with a $3.5 billion endowment who pay nothing in property taxes, and what could you do to change this?
There are other people who are running for mayor who would be better qualified to ask why there's an inequality between the taxes that big businesses and places like Johns Hopkins pay and what we pay as ordinary citizens. So I appreciate your question, but you got to ask them. And if your decision on who you're going to vote for mayor is based on that, then I would tell you not to vote for the people who made those decisions. Yeah. What I can also tell you is that we've given TIFs to a lot of developers and big business owners in the city. Let's start doing things like that for small business owners. 2/3 of all new net jobs in this country come from small business. Over 50% of people who are hired in this country are hired in small businesses. That's even more outsized in Baltimore because we don't have a lot of big businesses that hire a lot of people. So imagine if we're making these investments that we're giving to big businesses instead into small businesses and into our neighborhoods. Imagine what could happen in this city in the 21st century. So for a 21st century city, you need a 21st century mayor. And my name is Calvin Young, and that's why I'm running.
Mr. Young, we have time for one more question.
I really appreciate your sentiment in terms of looking long term. When you're talking about public infrastructure, I'm an architect, so I understand that, and I've been working on infrastructure and built environment here for 11 years since I moved here.
Yep.
One of the big issues with that is that you may be mayor for 4 years, you may be mayor for 8 years. It may take 30 years, 40 years to implement a metro system, a real subway network here.
That's right.
Or any of those other things.
That's right.
So 2 questions. One, how will you overcome the friction, the administrative friction and the political friction of actually getting those huge things done? Number 1. And number 2, how do you make sure it keeps going after you're out of office or even dead?
God willing, I'm not dead when we're done. So, you know, I think the larger thing that you're talking about is there a mayor can I be a mayor that you can trust to get things done, to collaborate with both the municipality, the city council, with the state legislator, and with federal officials to be able to make things happen? Because you're right, the city doesn't have enough money to make some of these ideas like a world-class subway system that happen by itself. And absolutely I can do that. Again, I've been a manager of lots of people as a chairman of the National Society of Black Engineers in corporate America, and I've managed $500 million assets for Sikorsky helicopter, and I've been able to make things happen. So I encourage you to read more about me. I encourage you to read more about the other candidates and see the differences. And I think what you'll see is that I'm the type of person who is authentic, is here for the right reasons, and will get things done as mayor. And I want to also say this one thing. I'm not going to be mayor for more than 8 years if I'm elected, God willing, because I still want to be an astronaut when I grow up. So I'm planning to do that as well. Thank you so much. I think is that my time?
Thank you, Mr. Young. Thank you. Everyone, we're going to take a very brief 5-minute recess, 5 minutes, and then we're going to hear from the rest of the candidates here tonight. We encourage you to stick around. I'll ask again if everyone would please return to their seats, and if all the remaining candidates would please come to the front, we will begin shortly. All right, if everyone could please quiet down, we're going to get started right now. Just a real quick announcement. We've got to hear a little bit from all the candidates tonight. A little bit from all the candidates so far, and we have plenty more. There's going to be another mayoral forum. I want to just allow a brief announcement for it.
Hello, everybody. I'm also a resident here in Mount Vernon and a part of Citizen Artists. There's a mayoral forum for citizen artists, which are people in the arts and culture here in Baltimore, really looking at all the assets that the arts bring to all of our communities and asking the mayors specific questions about what they think as far as careers, jobs in the arts, and also bringing a vision for Baltimore through the arts to the outside world and the nation. And so that's going to be held at MICA Monday, March 7th, 6 o'clock. It is a 90-minute forum, and we have stuck to 90 minutes every time. We've had 6 listening sessions throughout the city, and we welcome you all to join us Monday, March 7th, 6 to 7:30. We have invited every candidate, but we are not taking each candidate's actual speeches in the beginning. We are asking them 5 questions that we gleaned from 5 different communities throughout Baltimore, and then we are also asking the community to continue to ask more questions. So it's all about your questions and them listening.
All right, the first candidate that's going to speak now is from the Green Party, Mr. Joshua Harris.
There we go. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those that could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most that has made it possible for evil to triumph. I'm here tonight to ask you to take action, to no longer be indifferent, and to never ever remain silent again. In Baltimore City, for far too long, we've had leadership that has refused to take action. And they've remained indifferent, and we continuously see it over and over again. My name is Joshua Harris, and I believe that the single greatest issue in Baltimore politics is the distribution of capital, or the lack thereof. For the last 4 decades, mayors have chosen to only allocate capital to certain parts of Baltimore City, those that touch downtown and the harbor, while the rest of our neighborhoods have been left to fend for themselves and scrape and fight for every grant dollar that they could to try to organize and make it better themselves because they were neglected. As such, my administration will focus on creating healthy and economically viable neighborhoods. We want to bring Baltimore City into the 21st century, creating jobs, 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 jobs. My goal is to bring industry back to Baltimore, using clean energy and energy efficiency to create jobs in a city that has more than 40,000 vacant properties and hundreds of miles worth of infrastructure that needs to be redone and should be done using energy efficient technologies. I'm also the youth guy. I have a passion for youth like no other. A rec center saved my life. I clearly have a little bit of height. And if it wasn't for rec centers being funded and opened, who knows where I would be at today. For the last 2 administrations at least, we've continuously cut funding for education and for our young people. I was raised by a single mother, and so that left me a lot of opportunity to spend time with my grandmother, who used to take me, my older brother, and my younger sister to these events where people wore green shirts all the time, and they would sometimes protest and yell, and then other times they would meet and plan, and sometimes they would just celebrate together like a family. It wasn't until I was older that I realized that my grandmother worked for the union fighting for workers' rights, because she believed, just like she taught me to believe, that every single person deserves a living wage job. Every single one of us deserves the opportunity to one day know what it feels like to become a homeowner. And every single one of us deserves equal opportunity and access to provide our children with a quality public education. And so, of course, I believe that that comes down to opportunity and access. And for far too long in Baltimore City, we've had elected leadership who have neglected to provide opportunity and access to the other Baltimore, which is where I live at in West Baltimore. We sit here in beautiful Mount Vernon, which has reaped the benefits of being so close to downtown and the harbor, but where I live at, it's not the same. And so I know that together, if we want to, and if we elect leadership that is transparent, accountable, and responsible, we can create jobs in Baltimore City. We can provide quality public education for each and every one of our children. There's no reason that our schools should be without heat on 20-degree days. And together, we can create a Baltimore that is truly for all of us, despite what your zip code or what neighborhood you happen to have been born in. Again, my name is Joshua Harris, and I look forward to your questions. Any questions? No questions? Come on.
Good evening, Joshua. My question is, as an individual that's running for mayor, and hopefully and prayerfully will end up being mayor, how do you feel about the city's, the mayor and the city council not having control of the Baltimore City schools?
It's a huge problem, and so one of the initiatives that I like to see is at least, at minimum, a partially elected school board, because we have to have control of our schools and the funding. Although, I will put this with a caveat that right now, what little control we've had, we have mismanaged it. You cannot have $60 million disappear from your Department of Education budget, find $6 million under the table, and then expect the governor and the state to give you more money. So we have to make sure that we're responsible with the leadership or the allotment that we've been given as well. But absolutely, we need to take control of our schools, and we have to understand that Baltimore City is unique, and we have to make sure that people are here in Baltimore City elected and controlling our schools who are invested and value the future of our children.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, I assume that you're for solar power for homes. Is the cost of solar power deductible from your income tax? Is there a tax credit for that?
So right now, one of the things that I'm looking at is actually PACE legislation, which is property assessed clean energy, that would allow for the reduction in solar costs for homeowners who are interested in moving in the solar direction. But we also have to recognize that though solar may be more expensive up front, in the long term, you save more money, we reduce our carbon footprint, and we simultaneously create jobs for thousands of people right now in the city that need jobs and are ready to be trained for those jobs.
Thank you.
Following up on that, we have Energy Answers, a company in Baltimore City that's trying to build an incinerator in a community that already has very poor air quality. That community actually once used to be trained in how to build and maintain solar. Would you work with that community to fight this dirty energy and help them to put forward a clean energy solution?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And so, yes, I would. One, we need to train our youth and prepare them for those jobs and those careers that are coming down the pipeline. In any community that has a demand and is being excluded from having their voice heard, I would definitely advocate on behalf of them, just as I'm doing right now in West Baltimore, where our city and city council and 3 other candidates that sat up here previous to this allowed $18 million to be given to a wealthy developer without a substantive community benefits agreement while excluding the communities of color. So, yes, I definitely advocate with that community.
Really quick.
Baltimore City is known as a one-party town. I applaud you being an alternate party. Will you do anything to help grow the Green Party?
Absolutely, and one of the reasons and one of the factors in me making this decision was that there are certain core values that are near and dear to my heart, and I would always like to be at the forefront of any decision that I make. One of those, of course, being social justice and then grassroots democracy. For far too long, we've had gatekeepers in the political machine that has controlled the narrative of our politics in Baltimore City. We've only been presented with one party, and so it is time for us to stop with the party affiliations and look at the issues and who's substantively looking to address those issues. And I found that the Green Party is absolutely willing and ready to do that. And of course, we are looking to grow the Green Party and move our city forward.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you. Next up, we have David Marriott, also from the Green Party.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? Good, good. Thank you all for being here, first and foremost. It's an honor to be here. I'm running for mayor of Baltimore City, and I'm running for a couple reasons. But first, before we do that, let me thank Mount Vernon, Belvedere Association, and Charles Street Development Corporation for hosting this event. Everything everyone said up here today is so true. We need change. We need a lot of change. A lot of issues. And I don't want to get into talking about me too much, but if you go to my website, MarriottForBaltimore.com, you'll learn everything about me you need to know. I'll give you a quick rundown. I was a United States Marine. I was a police officer for 5 years, business owner. I've done everything I was supposed to do when I got to this country. So I know that change is possible. I should have been a criminal, probably a thug. I should have been a guy mugging someone right now, but because I had a loving adopted mother that refused to give up on me, and I had a community in New Jersey that believed that everyone was equal and stood behind me and gave a damn. I'm not asking you to elect me your mayor for 4 years. I can't do it in 4 years. They said we can't do it because we're part of the Green Party. So what's the use? What's the point of even trying? Right, Joshua? What's the point of trying? We're the Green Party, right? Well, the reason I ran with the Green Party is very simple. They have 10 core values. You see it. It's like getting into a relationship and you have a contract. You know what you're going to expect, right? So you say, okay, I'm going to go with the Green Party. Historically, Democrats have run this town for 49 years, since 1967. Not much has changed since 1947. Am I right? Is it 1947? Right? Okay. So none of this matters. We can come up here and promise you the world. None of it matters. Why does none of it matter? Because you're not safe. You can walk out this door right now, get stabbed, shot, robbed. Who's going to do anything about it? No one. Where's your police department? They're afraid to do their job. They're scared senseless to do their job, not because of the criminals, but because of what the city is going to do to them, to impress a couple voters for the wrong reasons. Our community is afraid of the police officers because of the history that they've had. Like I said, I was a police officer for 5 years. Worst job I ever had. Hated it every day. Try to do good, commander would tell you, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to write tickets today. Why am I writing tickets? You got 10 drug dealers in front of the police station. Oh, this is what the county executive wants. This is what so-and-so wants. Nothing got done. I drove by the drug dealers and I waved. Hey, how you doing today? Our communities, our Hispanic and our black communities are underserviced. If you're invested here in Baltimore, if you bought a house, if you live here now, you've been getting played. Spending your tax dollars, you're not getting the services that you require. If Baltimore City was your cell phone company, you'd fire them. You'd be calling T-Mobile right now, okay, for the switchover plan where they pay your cancellation fee. Seriously. Guys, we need to make a difference. That's fine. We need to make a big difference. And if we're going to ask for change, we need to unite. There's no racial issue here. I watch the news, and the news makes it seem like there's some kind of racial tension. I've been driving around this city for the last 4 months. I've been talking to everyone. I've been talking to people in the low-income areas, blacks. I've been talking to Hispanics in the low-income areas. I've been talking to Caucasians in Fells Point. And everyone has the same feeling. The feeling is we want to get rid of crime, want to live our lives, and we want to live safely in our city. And it's not going to happen unless we do what I refer to as SELL. Okay? Safety, education, love, and one more. Who can guess it? We're going to save the last one. I'm going to tell you what the first one is. Security. You got to be secure in your neighborhood. If you educate these people that are committing the crimes, they'll have better options. They won't have to commit crimes. If we make sure they get a 12-year education from elementary to high school, they'll have options. If we create trade jobs in the school systems, they'll have options when they get out. They won't have to be on the street. We have to do these things in order for us to start over, to make the city safer. If we don't do them, we're going to be here another 4 years. You're going to have this guy running again. You're going to have me running again, maybe a few more, maybe another 28, 24, whatever the number is. Love. The children in this community don't feel loved. They feel as if we don't care. And actually, we have neglected them. I'm 36 years old, and for the last 20 of it, I've been chasing my own dreams. I couldn't care less what was going on with anyone else. I didn't think about it. I said, man, I got to get this, I got to get the money, I got to pay this bill, I got to open this business, the wife wants a new car. That's all I thought about. But then lives are on the line. 344 people. That's more people than sitting in this room right now that have been killed last year alone. Any questions?
We have time for one question.
Huh? Oh, yes. What is the last labor? L is the last. It's labor. People need jobs. And in order to create jobs, we have to invite companies. Companies are not going to come here and invest in this city and continue to spend money month after month after month if they're not safe. We have to have safety, education. Those are the first two things that need to be taken care of. We need to reform the police department. And guys, if we don't do this, good luck. But I ask you to elect me as your mayor, and I'm guaranteeing you this will be done. Thank you.
Mr. Marriott. Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Emanuel McCray, also running for Green Party.
I was hoping for a packed room, everybody, but we already know who the registered Democrats are. by everybody who's else here. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Emanuel McCray. I'm a Green Party candidate for mayor. Actually, this is my second run running for mayor. The last election that went past, our Greens were short because of the system of Democrats and Republicans make it hard for smaller parties to get on the ballot. And we was like about 200 registered voters short. This time we had opportunity by some great organizers to help get enough registered voters to be on the ballot for the next 4 years. We have several candidates running for city council. I'm running against these two gentlemen. And it's time, like everybody says, is to make change. Myself and all that, the reason I'm running for mayor, the same reason I tried to run 4 years ago, or even my dream back when I was a college student as a political science major attending Morgan State University, is it's time to give back to the people and all that. And the problem with our city, they've given too much to that elite group of people and all that. And none of that money is being invested into to the humans and all that for the regular people every day. It's all this divide and conquer thing. Everything's about politics. I'm green because I love the values of the 10 keys. I can't even accept donations from PACs, unions. I'm gonna tell you something about Green Party. We can't accept that. You know, no PACs, no unions, only individual donations. So regardless, as a Green, we have a harder time to raise money to fund ourselves in the campaign. But in Baltimore, it's a big city, but it's small enough to get the message across. A little about myself, I'm just a regular everyday person all that. I've been a human rights activist the last 5 years, organization called United Workers. I have worked with allies like Working Families. I have worked on trying to raise wages for 1010. We passed it, but we gotta wait like 4 or 5 years just to get 1010, and we're gonna have to battle again. I've been a victim of lack of paid sick leave, going through cancer. I took almost 3.5 years. I beat cancer. I'm standing right in front of you today and all that, everybody. And so I'm highly motivated and all that, and I feel like I'm tired seeing the top tier citizens who got the money and the backing to run for office, and even if they lose, they're fine. If I lose, I might be blackballed, you know, working for jobs in the city. I don't know, you know what I'm saying, because I'm the little guy and all that. I'm maybe the biggest guy in the room, because I'm over 300 pounds, but I don't mean nothing, you know what I'm saying, in this system. For my platforms and all that, people talk about jobs. I say we need to bring living wage jobs. Jobs can be created. There's a plan that my ally's been working on that Baltimore City gets $65 million a year in bonds. And they give a lot of that money to private developers, and Baltimore City is a product of failed development. Failed development. They already spoke about where the money goes into the inner harbor. Look what they're doing with Harbor Point. We have a TIF issue and all that. We got $30 million being circulated over in East Baltimore, McKelvey Park, and none of that even touching the neighborhoods. We have more vacant houses in Baltimore than there are homeless people. I mean, and they always talk about jobs, jobs, jobs. We got rid of all the industrial jobs. That one job when Bethlehem still was open, took care of families, it's gone. They went to the service sector jobs. Who can live off of $8 to $10 an hour in this upcoming, you know, inflation in this community? I want to bring forth permanent affordable housing. I want everybody to look into community land trust. It's just an option. It's just an option and all that. Our homeless people don't have a voice. Baltimore City, when it's this time of year, you think they could do the right thing, because these hotels, it's on city property, all those empty rooms, our city is paying the hotels. And they could put homeless people in those rooms, but you think they will not do the right thing. I'm going to leave off, you know what I'm saying, so I want some time for questions. If you want to know more about me, you can look on McCrayforthepeople.com. If anybody have questions, feel free to ask. You know, this is why I'm here. We have a community land trust. We got the Charm City Land Trust is the first example of the community. The trust owns the land, and fourth with the community land trust, it's a way that you can keep the equity down for people who can afford to be in a permanent affordable housing. I don't have all the details with you. I have, you know, even just one book about a 2020 plan, where we're trying to take about, asking for 40 million out there, 60 million that we get a year. 20 million is going to, housing, fix these housing out. To other 20 million to get people coming home, to put, to bring forth jobs. As mayor, if I elected, I can force these big corporations like Under Armour, John Hopkins to pay, they own city land to give back, pay more of their people, take care of them. As a mayor, we can do that for real, but it's all about, the backdoor system and the buddies, and that will end if I can get past the primaries and run to the general.
Yeah, I wanted to see what you could do as mayor to prevent water shutoffs like we were seeing this past summer with your city agencies and the water department. What could you do to address that situation?
Simple. I think the way I can come with that is take more control of it. I mean, the current administration, it was about to privatize water here in Baltimore. They was about to give it to a country in France. I think it was called Viola or something. And we just want to put more money and resources into the water. That's definitely something to do. I can't, give you the right details, but empowering all that's me and anybody we're working with to make these decisions.
We got maybe real quick if anyone's got a question. Otherwise, thank you, Mr. McCray, very much.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Next up, we have Mr. Armand Girard from the Republican Party. Mr. Girard? Yep, you, yep.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. Certain opportunity because Republicans, we don't have too many Republicans. I see one Republican friend in the audience, Mr. Fairbanks. Are there any other Republicans here at all? Oh, that's not bad. We got a few. Well, anyway, I'm Armand Girard. I'm on the Republican Central Committee for a couple terms. And 4 years ago, we didn't have a candidate to challenge the mayor. Maybe we should have had with the mayor the results that we have right now. Anyway, that's the major reason I filed, is to make sure that one of us three here, Mr. Walden and Larry over here, one of us contests the mayor, the person who wins the Democratic nomination in the primary. I want to make sure they don't have a free ride like they did 4 years ago. I think a good, healthy debate between two people on the issues of Baltimore, I think, is very, very important. So that's one of the major reasons I'm running, is to make sure there's a candidate in the Republican Party. Of course, the other reasons are pretty obvious. When you take a look at the homicide rate in Baltimore, at least last December, we're at 55 per 100,000. So let's see what the other cities have. Boston is right between 3 and 4. New York is 5. We had more homicides in Baltimore than New York did last year, and they have 8.5 million people. The country I'm from, my parents, France, they have 1 homicide per 100,000. So something's fundamentally wrong when you have such an extreme disparity. As I said, something is wrong, something has to be done. And I think one of the important things is that you and the public, if I win the election, let's say in the primary, we have to start thinking about other choices besides just the Democratic Party. Up in New York, they were desperate 25 years ago, and they elected a Republican mayor, Mayor Giuliani, and he got the homicide rate down from 2,000 down to 400, an 80% drop. And for 20 years, they kept on electing Republicans. So you have to start thinking about other things. The homicide rate is horrible here. The small crime is horrible. My neighborhood, there's a local pharmacy which everybody goes to. It's privately owned. pharmacist died, so the the elderly widow ran it for about 10 years, and then some big person came in with a mask with a big gun and took all her drugs from her. She was scared to death. A week later, they broke into her pharmacy and took all the drugs. And she said, at my age, I can't handle that stress. So she sold and she got out. We're driving people out of the city with crime. My car was stolen last year. Thank God I got it back. But anyway, when you have a homicide rate that is so high like that, way out of proportion to other ones, it's like the temperature of a child. You take the temperature, and his temperature is 104 degrees. You don't hesitate to call for help, okay? And that's what we have to do. I would seriously consider bringing the National Guard back when the riots were here to stabilize East and West Baltimore. Let me say one thing. My hearing aid broke. I'll get my new one next Tuesday. So the gentleman over here is going to help me with the questions if I can't comprehend them. Yep.
If you could use the mic, he would greatly appreciate it.
People commit crimes due to hopelessness. What is your plan?
He said, people commit crimes.
Let me finish. People commit crime. Okay. People commit crimes due to hopelessness. What is your plan to help people with jobs, economic development opportunities, and education?
He said, people commit crimes due to hopelessness. What is your plan to create jobs and opportunities?
Very good question, because that's the other side. I worked at Harbor City, which we took the worst kids in this city, you know, the worst of the worst. You have the crème de la crème and you have the bottom of the bottom. I don't know what that's called. Anyway, we worked with them with Ms. Barty for 13 years, and some of them were sent by judges. We never had a serious problem there because we reached out to them. We gave them a nice Thanksgiving dinner. We gave them a nice Christmas dinner, but if they did something wrong, lightning struck. In other words, we had discipline. We saved a lot of kids like that. I think that's one thing that you have to do. The other thing that you got to do is you got to wake up and say, high school is not for everybody. You go to Switzerland or Germany when you're 13 years old, they qualify, they examine your results, they say you're not qualified for high school. But we have a wonderful apprentice program, and none of this vocational school. You go to work every day, and you get paid minimum, very small amount, but you're learning a trade. You're learning to be a mason. You're learning to be an electrician. That's my solution to that.
Mr. Girard, thank you very much. That was 7 minutes. Thank you.
Is that the time?
Yes. Next up, we have also from the Republican Party, Larry Wardlow. Is he? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm quite sorry. Next, we have Alan Walden. Alan Walden.
I've never been forgotten before. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for your infinite patience. You are all candidates for sainthood. My name is Alan Walden. Some of you have probably heard me on the radio from time to time. Came here from New York 28 years ago. People still ask me why. I say because I've been there, I did that, I bought the t-shirt, and it was time to move to another place. I came here because I was told the climate was better. I was misled. I came here because I heard the taxes were lower. I was misled. I came here because I had been to this city time and again and found it immensely appealing. Baltimore is a treasure box. Most people don't deal with it as such, but it is a treasure box. Look at the building we're in. It's 113 years old. It was built on ground that was the estate of John Eager Howard, called Belvedere. He was a hero of the American Revolution. We're in that building. It is a treasure trove of recreational, historical, all kinds of attractions, cultural. What other city in America gives you the birthplace of the Star-Spangled Banner, the first Roman Catholic cathedral in the United States, the Inner Harbor that's the envy of most large cities in the country? But there are problems. And the problems, I don't even have to talk about them. They've been solved by everybody who's been up here. Why bother? Well, maybe they're not exactly right in their approach. So let's take them in order. Let's start with education. The educational system in Baltimore is in terrible need of revision. Someone ought to be able to pick up the buildings on North Avenue and shake them and see what falls out and get rid of that and keep the rest. We teach the wrong things. The secondary schools in Baltimore City should be directed toward teaching people how to work. Not to go off to college automatically and get a degree that may prove to be useless. How to work. What do we need? We need jobs. What do jobs require? Skilled workers, bricklayers, masons, carpenters, steel workers, iron workers, auto mechanics, electricians. Work. Young people should be able to come out of the secondary schools in Baltimore City with those skills. And the only way to do that is to do a wholesale revision of the approach in the Baltimore City schools and turn at least half of the high schools into vocational technical schools. Nothing wrong with that. Learn how to work. Crime. Oh boy, there's a biggie. I got phone calls and emails from around the world from people I had met in different countries, as far away as Australia and New Zealand, asking me if the city was afire last April. And I told them no, the city was not afire. This is not a third world country. There are areas of it that have problems. We have to remember what the police are for. We want the police to respect the citizenry. It's perfectly reasonable. The citizenry has to respect the police department. That's what they're there for. First line of defense against lawbreakers. That's their job. We can't second guess everything they do all the time. Poverty, it's institutional in some places in Baltimore. Generation after generation after generation after generation of people who deserve better, but they have literally been taught they are victims. That is not a permanent state. It's something to be overcome. And the job of the mayor, by the way, is not to motivate anybody. It is to create a structure, to create an environment in which people motivate themselves. We have 624,000 people in this city, and they're all, I believe, ready to do that.
We have time for a question or two.
Questions?
That I disagree with anything that you've said. I do think Baltimore, that our political class undersells the city. It is a treasure trove, I mean, everywhere you look. The problem is what just happened. 80% of the room left. And how do you get a consensus, all of you, when you're so disjointed? I'm a Republican myself, but I have no hope for the primary because.
How do we get over that?
How do you get a consensus now? How do you get your message out to the people that
By
need to hear it?
by making as much noise as I possibly can, and I promise you I can do that. And I will, between now and the primary in April, and after that, it is to be profoundly hoped until the election in November. That's the plan. I didn't get in this just to make noise, just to talk about it. I got in it to win.
That's time.
One final word, may I? Here's my summary in one sentence. Baltimore is a great city. It's time for it to start behaving like one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walden. Make sure never to forget you again. Everyone, Larry Wardlow.
I have a question if I can get one quick in.
I apologize, sir. We're going to give each candidate equal time. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk with you. Maybe perhaps you could do so in the lobby. Mr. Wardlow.
Good evening. Thank you for all coming out, because I know right now most of y'all could be watching NCS out New Orleans. The question that I get, not what can I do for Baltimore, number one question I get is why am I a Republican first and foremost? Why am I African American Republican first and foremost? One thing a lot of people don't realize is the fact that if you go back in your history, something they don't try to tell you was the first party to accept the African American was the Republican Party. I'm a former Democrat. I'm sorry. Born and raised in the Democrat stronghold, I realized that there was not a lot of opportunities. What I also realized, there was a lot of excuses I heard from the mayor all the way down to state delegates, however it may be. My grandfather worked at General Motors down on where Amazon now sits at. The problem with Baltimore City now, because I'm not the average candidate, I don't have all the college education and college experience like everybody else. I'm just like you. Only difference is I could probably beat you in a game of spades. But on a real serious note, we can't stop the crime that's already going on right now. But what we can do is prevent the crime from happening by educating our young kids early on in education. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, we need to open the recreation centers back up. It's not hard. It's money in the budget. And I guarantee you, by giving these kids the opportunity that I had when I was growing up, because when I grew up, we had recs. We didn't have time to do anything on the corner. We didn't have time to do anything on the streets. We had mentors inside them recs. We have lost all of that. What Baltimore needs is a true leader, somebody who's just like you. Somebody, when the recession happened, they budget just like you did. Somebody, when things fall at home, what do? You cut spending. You can't go out. But when you get a chance and you earn the extra money, you can take your vacation then. But as you can tell, and I thank you all for still standing around, because what I see out of you all right now is somebody who's really truly care about Baltimore. Because as you know, once the fan club left, everybody finally got a seat now. And that's the problem that's been going on with Baltimore for decades and for years. If you ever notice, all the top 12 had this whole room full and said the same exact things they say for decades, for years, over and over and over again. But the main problem was you had 5 people that was running for mayor sitting on that cabinet who represented Sandtown, who was mayor over Sandtown. Because if they did their job, the riots would have never happened. Unfortunately, I didn't lose a friend to a police officer, but I lost more friends to African Americans. I lost aunts and family members to African Americans. I'm sorry, I can't defend and I can't relate to somebody who got shot by a cop. Yes, I got harassed by police officers, but I wasn't never shot by a cop, so I really can't defend. But what I can defend is, first and foremost, you had a 3-year-old girl sitting on a porch of a home on Greenmount Avenue on Old York Road. What I did not see was a protest and a march from DeRay or from whoever else it was. But as soon as a white person or cop do something to an African American, the first thing you see is Al Sharpton, Jamal Bryant, everybody coming down. What we had to do in Baltimore is to reach out to everybody. Why can't Canton Crossing B by Bel Air Edison, where the vacant stores are at? Why can't we have supermarkets? Why do we have corner stores where the drugs hang out at? The reason why you had that is because the markets left. The reason why the markets left, they got scared. Also the reason why the markets left, they see there's no opportunity. If you bring the markets back in, I guarantee you can hire probably 5 or 10 people in this area right here alone. The problem is with Baltimore City is always the status quo. I believe in one thing. The one thing I remember is my grandfather always told me is this: I can give you the fish, and you can eat every single day. But what I learned as a Republican is one thing. They might not give you the fish, but they will give you the tools to go fishing to eat whenever you want. Any questions, let me know.
We have time for a few questions. If anyone would like to ask a question. Sir?
This probably isn't politically correct, but I don't deal in respectability politics. I'd just like to make one correction. You said that you didn't see any marches. I, myself, have personally marched across Baltimore City against black-on-black violence and crime in our communities 3 times in this year with more than 300 people. So I'd just like to clarify that just because the media didn't cover it or no one up there prior participated does not mean that it did not occur.
No.
That's all.
Hold on. What I was saying was the fact of, when the incident happened on Greenmount, me and a couple of Republicans, we were there. But what I was sitting there being more serious about, you don't see the big leaders come in when it comes to black-on-black crime. You see us. You see people behind the scenes. I've been behind the scenes for decades. And I've been working behind different campaigns. But what I mean by, like you see this empty room right now. And the reason why this room is empty is because they lost connection. But I guarantee you, if the same 12 that was here before we were come back in, the room will be filled. We need to also reach out. It's not about growing the party. It's about growing the base. It's about growing people here, because it's not about Republicans. It's not about unaffiliated. It's not about green. It's about the citizens of Baltimore. My plan is very simple. Baltimore matters. A lot of people don't understand what I mean by Baltimore matters. It's not just Mount Vernon. It's just not Greenmount. It's just not Sandtown. It's all of the city. And I'm a person I know guaranteed, because I'm a family of a blended family. I'm raising 9 kids right now. And some of them mine, some of them not. But it takes a leader who knows how. Yes, we don't have the college education, but I have the experience. I've been through every place. I've been through Sandtown. I've been through Canton. I've been everywhere, and I hear the same cry from the same people. It's painful.
Thank you, Mr. Wardlow. Next up, we have Nicholas Caminiti.
All right, before I get started, I have to get a couple of things off my chest. First thing, I really don't like it when people talk about poor people like they're a problem. I also really don't like it when people don't talk about the war on drugs as like what it really is, which is a war on people who use drugs. I don't like it when politicians talk about their opponents as if they're incompetent. I don't like it when people talk about poverty as if it's a communicable disease. And I forgot what the 5th thing was, so I'm just going to move on. But those 4 are really important. Yeah, there are a lot of problems in the city, so let's fix them. I'll tell you exactly what I would do during my first 4 years as mayor of Baltimore. First, let me tell you just a tiny bit about my background. I've lived in 3 neighborhoods in Baltimore. When I first started law school, I lived in Mount Vernon, right in the Queen Anne Belvedere, which is just around the corner. From there, I moved to Pigtown, lived there for 2 years. I describe that as a neighborhood in transition. And then after my 2 years there, I decided that I wanted to buy a house. And I had to choose where in the city I was going to buy that house. And I ended up choosing Carrollton Ridge, which you may not be familiar with, but if you know where the West Side Shopping Center is, it's literally right behind that. Like, when I go out my side door, I'm looking at the back of a supermarket. I bought my house for $20,000. Just bought it. I don't have a mortgage payment, I don't have rent. Thankfully, I had the money that I was able to do that. When I tell people that, they don't believe it. They don't believe that the market is like that in areas like that. But anyway, having a house is a really important thing for me. And I've spoken to a lot of people that don't have that. And I think, honestly believe, that it is unrealistic to expect anything at all of a person if that person does not, at the end of every day, have a place to go home to that they feel safe in, that they can call their own. So until that's fixed, it doesn't matter what we do. So first, what we have to do is we need to go through the city, we need to look at all of these vacant homes, we need to decide which ones can be fixed up, which ones need to be torn down, and we need to do that. When I moved into Carrollton Ridge, I've been there since last summer, and it's about 7 months that I've been there, I've witnessed 4 house fires. In my 31 years of life prior to moving to Carrollton Ridge, I had never witnessed a house fire. That should tell you something. There's something going on in those houses that we need to fix. I live right next door to a vacant house. I live right across the street from a couple of vacant houses. I started wondering, why are these houses vacant? What's going on with these houses? So I got online, I looked at the city's records, found out what's going on. The house next door to mine had gone into foreclosure because it had been sold to somebody at a completely ridiculous price, and they couldn't afford it. So it went into foreclosure, it became bank-owned, the bank passed it off to a loan servicing company, and then the loan servicing company basically walked away from it. It's just an orphan house sitting right next to mine. So instead of thinking to myself, that's interesting, I went into the house and I cleaned it out. I actually did something about it. And that's all we need to do. That's all we need to do, is go through our neighborhoods, fix up our houses, give them to the people that need them because they either are homeless or because they're being taken advantage of by landlords that don't care, and put those people in those houses. Then we'll figure out the rest. That's it.
We have time for some questions. If anyone has a question.
My name is Nicholas Caminiti.
I'm sure someone has a good question they could ask Mr. Caminiti.
I'm trying not to be the only one getting up asking questions, but if need be, that's what it's going to be.
Much appreciated.
Let me ask you, you said that you live next to abandoned house, few across the street from you.
Right.
Well, you know the city has all these lofty plans of redeveloping these neighborhoods. What is your take on neighborhoods being developed or redeveloped, but at the same time, it causes a state of gentrification in this city?
Yeah, the redevelopment programs that the city has in effect right now are not for poor people. They're for people who already have money. There are no options for people who cannot afford any sort of down payment on a home, cannot obtain any sort of financing, and really just they're helpless. There's nothing for them. So yeah, there are some good things happening, vacancy to value, yeah, great. You know, let's get people to fix something up, but that's not helping the people that really need it. The people that really need it have nothing.
So as mayor, how would you change that?
I would give them houses.
Just give them the houses.
Just give them the houses.
Somebody need to make a phone call down the city.
And how are they maintain their houses once you've given it to them?
With their hands.
They have experience doing plumbing? I mean, realistically, home ownership is not the easiest thing to do.
If somebody owns a home and it's theirs and they need to fix something, they will figure out how to fix that. Whether that is by getting on YouTube and finding out how to do it themselves, or finding a friend of theirs who knows how to do it better than they do. People are very resourceful when they need to do something that will deeply improve and affect their life.
Hey, I just have a quick question for you. I am a property owner here in Baltimore City, and I have been diligently restoring and doing restoration on a very large property and fighting the city nonstop the entire way. What would you do if you are so fortunate enough to actually get elected to help it make it easier for people that want to take those houses like you have done next door and cleaned it up and get someone in them? Right now, the lead paint certification laws are out of this world difficult. The city getting a permit, have you tried to pull a permit in Baltimore City? It's near impossible. When you do, Mr. Warnock earlier talked about customer service. Hello, the worst customer service in the world is Baltimore City. You get better customer service at Starbucks. So, you know, what would you do to affect that change? It's great to say, yeah, go into a neighbor's house and fix it up and give it to someone that needs it, but this city will keep you from doing that even if you have all the money in the world and want to do that.
There's a lot of things that our city government does that I frankly don't understand. And I don't understand them because I don't work in the city government and I don't have the opportunity to talk to the people who made the policies, who talk to the people who created the customer service systems, and to talk to the people who run them. So while I can't tell you why things are the way that they are right now, I can tell you that it is as simple as talking to a homeowner and listening to what they need and giving that to them if we want to make something new and better that actually works.
Thank you, Mr. Caminiti. Next up, we have Mr. Igwu. Oh, I apologize. Is he not here? Mr. Frank Logan.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, Brian, for inviting me to the association. I'm Frank Logan. My information is on the back of this paper. I'm a 24 years veteran of the United States Army. I hold an MBA from, thank you. I'm originally from Baltimore. I grew up in Gwen Oak, Howard Park area. I also went to Polytechnic for a couple of years to be an engineer. However, sports got in the way, and I decided to try to play football professionally, but that didn't work out. So the Army was my way out. Coming home a couple years ago, it wasn't the same Baltimore. When I entered my kids into the public school system, they're 2 years ahead of the kids that was in those schools. So my problem was basically the education system. But then April 2015 happened, and if you had a whereabout knowledge of something about to go down through social media, you should have been addressing that ahead of time, being proactive. So to me, when Ms. Blake announced that she was not seeking re-election, I felt that my skill sets, being in the military, having worked in state and local government, having been in education, having been in public safety, could fill the needs of that office. So here I am before you tonight, running as an independent candidate. Unfortunately, as an independent candidate, I have to collect about 5,000 signatures. So I've been happily doing that and getting out and meeting people, as Mr. David Warnock has been doing. But like I said, my path to election is a little slightly different. But I believe that my vision and your vision together create solutions to solve the problems in the city. So what I read today was that, yeah, there is an $18 million TIF given to the developer. My question immediately began to say, okay, is that the developer doing a campaign finance for somebody? Just saying. That $18 million could have been put into this Mount Vernon community, and the community could have decided, hey, we want X, Y, Z. We want better education for the school. We want to bring up a business incubator. We wanted to do something else with it. I agree with Mr. McCray about the community land trust. That creates jobs right here. You got potholes all over the city that needs shovel-ready work. Don't really take a lot of skills. But we come into education. I went to Polytechnic. We had a lab, we had a wood shop, we had a metal shop. And just before I left Poly, they created the Westside Skills Center. That's funding that could have went to create a couple more Westside Skills Centers through the city for students to learn a skill, get a trade, get a certification. Today, Europe is beating us because they start their kids in education doing computer programming in middle school. We're not doing that. We're behind the 8 ball already. This is 2015. This is supposed to be the new millennium. We're supposed to be a 21st American century city, and we're far behind the ball. So again, I'm Frank Logan. I'm running for mayor. I have a lot of ideas. My website is bemoreforlogan.org, and I'll take your questions. Thank you.
You just spoke out against a TIF of
Yes, sir.
$18 million.
Yes, sir.
The way that the city has approached economic development for about 2 generations is to say, we're going to bribe businesses to come here. We're going to tell them that they don't have to pay taxes for 20 years. Then they'll leave. Then we'll try and bribe some other business.
Right, sir.
What are you going to do to end this system of bribery where we take money from the poor, give it to the rich, and instead have something that creates a marketplace that attracts business rather than bribes them to come for a short period of time?
Thank you for your question, sir. What I'd like to do in that regard is take that $18 million, like I said, that we was given to this developer and bring it down to the community and build from the community outwards. We got to build from the community outwards. The current political environment right now on the national level, you can really not get funds from federal government. The political environment at the state level, you just saw what happened with the red line. $3 billion was just taken away, and then you got back $135 million for a city link. That don't make no sense to me. So all this funding that we're giving to the developers need to be given to the 9 geographical areas in Baltimore.
We have time for one more question if anyone would like to ask Mr. Logan another question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, a lot of people here. Here's my question. Now, I watched the presidential Republican debate the other night.
Right, sir.
As a citizen of America, it was horrible. Republican or Democrat, it was horrible. So this leads into my question. I think we have like 24, 25 individuals who are running for mayor.
Yes, sir.
In this city.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about having 25 individuals who want to run for mayor, and everyone is proposing to do something different? Do you think that's kind of muddying the waters, dividing votes? How do you feel about that?
Well, what I see is each individual person in this room, you're a voter, you need to research your candidates. Look who's backing their campaigns. I do not have a developer backing my campaign. I'm self-financed. Self-financed. So I owe nobody nothing except for the city that gave me my education, gave me a home, and allowed me to do the things I needed to do when I went off to go to the Army.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Everyone, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's bemoreforlogan.org. And if you would, please sign my petition for me. Thank you.
Next we have Miss Lavern Murray.
Tall person. Good evening. We're almost done. I just want to say, first of all, that my name is, if we want to correct it, Mrs. I am married. And actually, you can call me Doctor if you like, Dr. Lavern A.W. Murray. I am a wife, mother, pastor, and an author. I have been employed in construction for over 32 years of management. I know I don't look that old. Thank you. I am 53 years old. I'm one of 16. I've been born and raised in Baltimore City. I have attended colleges in Baltimore, and I intend to just give you a brief synopsis of who I am. I have worked for Job Corps. I've worked with at-risk. I have been a teacher for 5 years. So, and a lot of people say, well, wow, you did a lot of stuff. Yes, I have. I guess I'm old enough that I've made it 53 years that I was able to accomplish a lot of things. However, the challenges that I see for our city, we've all heard them over and over again. We have so many challenges about our city. We have crime, we have all of the things that you've heard tonight, and there's no need for me to say them all again. The problem with what I see for Baltimore City is the broken family. If you fix the broken family, you can fix a lot of the social skills and the social issues that we face in this city. So we have to go back. We see the crime in our city, 340-some murders, as we have heard tonight and many other times. Our crime is in our city is because we haven't educated our people. We haven't communicated with one another. And the only way that we're going to deal with all of the challenges in our city is it's going to take a citywide people to deal with citywide issues. And it's going to take everybody in the entire city of Baltimore to help the mayor to orchestrate and to oversee the problems that are in our city. No one person can solve these problems. Come on, y'all, let's get real with the situation. The mayor of Baltimore City, the governor of the state of Maryland, the president of the United States cannot solve these problems. It's going to take unity of the people together, working with the entities and the government and the local facilities so that we can prosper and further. Everybody deserves safety. Everybody wants to prosper. Just like we've heard, everybody wants the same thing. I don't think it has anything to do with just color, and we're making a lot of things out about race. It's about the lack of everybody having equal opportunity. So what do we have to do about that? We need to make those changes. We need to communicate. We need to get down to the basics. We need to get our educational system together. It needs to be broke down and started all over again. Our education system, we failed. When I went to school, there was a system where you went from kindergarten to 6th grade. Then you left and you went to not middle school, it was called junior high. And it was from 7 to 9. And then you went to high school from 10th to 12. We have mixed up our children into different groups. We put our babies in the group with the middle students that shouldn't be there. We put our middle school students in the high school education. I've taught for 5 years. And we can fix our educational problem, but it's going to take everybody. It's going to take the families, the parents. First of all, it starts at home. It starts at home. Education starts at home. Nowhere is our educational system here to be a parent to your children. It has to start at home. Parents have to be accountable for their actions, as well as teachers have to be accountable for their actions. So it's a two-way street. It is not just, John F. Kennedy say, what can we do for this country? What are you going to do for the country? We all have to participate. In order to fix the economical growth and development, I had the opportunity to go down to the Downtown Partnership. And that's the Inner Harbor group that is working. It works. And it's only working because those partners have partnered with their residents. They've partnered with the businesses, the small businesses, and the corporate businesses. So they're all partnering in a group. They all have become members of this group. Yes, there's some financial funding that comes from within. So it is not really, the Downtown Partners is not just funded by governmental funding. They get some grants, but it's all coming from the community. So it's going to take the community to further out and resolve our issues and our problems. So we need unity in our city. It's going to take unity. Not only is it going to take unity, but some of the issues with our transportation. Our transportation it doesn't go from one end to the city to the other. We need to resolve that issue. You know, before we bring the red line or another line on board, how about we fix these raggedy streets? You know, how are we going to get new transportation? We have initiatives to bring on a whole new bus system, but the bus system is not going to work if our roads aren't fixed, if we don't fix the plumbing underneath of the roads. So why do we have to wait for all of the roads to explode before we start fixing them? Because of the plumbing system that doesn't work. We need to hold every agency in Baltimore City accountable. The crime that perpetuates in our city and is increasing in the last year, the effects of both residents and attendance of many tourist venues, our crime rate throughout our city will not decline unless we all get involved. Our focus should be on intervention and prevention, changing and educating our people. Our social services, our infrastructure, all of that needs to be changed. All of those challenges, and we can only do it together. Team Baltimore, together, everybody achieves more if we do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. You used up your question time, but thank you very much. That was 7 minutes,
Okay.
a little bit over.
But if you have any questions, I'll be here in the back, and you can answer.
I'm trying to be fair to every candidate. Every candidate gets 7 minutes.
You can ask me later.
We have one more candidate. You could, I'm sure Ms. Murray would love
Right.
to answer your questions in the hallway. Or if you want to wait, so we got one more candidate. All right. Ms. Murray, thank you very much. Mr. Otonna, you've waited for everyone else. Everyone, please wait for him.
Thank you. All right. My name is Collins Otonna, and by the way, you know, Kennedy said, seek not the Republican answer or the Democrat answer, but the right answer. So if the top polling candidates had enough care for the city as you do, they'd be here listening to what everyone had to say. But they left. And none of them had any new ideas, you see. And sorry, I have to hold my lip because I had a surgery like in 3 weeks. So I still have some facial weakness. So I gotta just, it's temporary though, so I can talk straight. I thank Mr. Brian Levy, who inherited the task of coordinating so many worthy candidates. And remember, this was supposed to be about Mount Vernon, and everyone went everywhere else except Mount Vernon. So let me just say that I have a simple view about the state of affairs in Mount Vernon. It's great, but it can get better. However, transportation is at its best with the yellow, purple, orange, the Hopkins service, the taxi, and the bus routes. I think Mount Vernon is not doing bad. Crime, in my opinion, in these neighborhoods is relatively low compared to the rest of say, the west side. And I believe that the per capita income in these areas is also better than most of the east or west Baltimore. So I believe that the city is like a vehicle that may not move till you fix all its parts. And we need to focus on the challenges we have in the west side of the city and East Baltimore. So my urban renewal strategy will place more focus on the west side, East Baltimore, north of Mondawmin to the area of Cold Spring and Park Heights, all the broken down homes and dilapidated houses along Park Heights. And in West Baltimore, the city has a challenge up there. However, we owe a debt of gratitude to Governor Logan for his foresight in assisting in the demolition of long-standing blight. Should I be elected, I would assist him greatly to once and for all strike a blow to city blight. The thrust of my campaign actually is a little unusual because my passion is about the youth. I've had one or two people here talk about the youth today, but I actually want to have a major program to rehabilitate the youth because this will be, I will design a governmental policy that could tackle the youth failure, moral, academic, professional, and social failure among the youth. For this sake, I will implement a youth rehabilitation and security program which will involve all aspects of government, school systems, banks, foundations, corporate investments, judiciary, and will involve saving our greatest investment in the rehabilitation of our youth, also known as our future. My next passion is to secure the children. So I intend to launch the first of its kind, a child security initiative. We will reform the homeless sheltering system, which currently is abysmal, to yearly beds with mandatory enrollment in life chance programs, medical care, and family involvement, and job rehabilitation. That means that if you're homeless, you get a bed for 1 year. You can live there, get a job. Okay, you can live there, get work, go through training, get medical care, get fixed up. You don't keep people out of your house every morning, have them hang around all day and come back and say you're giving them shelter. If you're homeless, you get a 1 year term, 1 bed. You can go and come as you please. And so people can have a base to actually come out of homelessness. You see? And my family security initiative will have offices directly under the mayor. I'm going to have a mayor's office for emergency assistance to families and youth. So if your family is really stuck, you can run to that office, and we're going to have that office all over the city. Mayor's office for family emergencies. And so I'll just say, there is so much ideas from so many intelligent leaders, but I have specific programs and what they can do. Let me give you a few, and then I will be done with my time. Child security. This will involve a child welfare police, a new kind of police just to look after children on the streets and go after child issues. Youth rehabilitation. End of bullying. No more will you come out and find a bullet on your tires. That will stop from day one in the office. I will fix that. I'm going to change the parking system so you can buy a parking sticker monthly and park anywhere you want. Then there'll be a new parking system, new driver license scheme, food security program. If you're hungry, there's enough issue, go and get an emergency voucher from the city. No one is going to starve in Baltimore City. No kid is going to not have a meal to eat. Now, I'm going to have a youth arts initiative in the city where I'm going to build theaters like the ones you have here in the neighborhoods for youth to go and express their art. No, and they don't have to do it on the street. Then I'm going to have prayer freedom in schools. I'm going to have tax-free economic zones. So if an area is really depressed, if you move there to do your business, you pay no taxes. And so all the businesses up there will have no tax. And they're going to be on the west side, east side. Then we're going to have graduate to neighborhood programs. If you graduate, you have a degree, you come to the west side, we give you a free house to refurb and give you a loan to fix it up.
Mr. Otonna, that is 7 minutes. Thank you so much. And
Thank you very much. Sir, I had no time for questions. Thank you.
Everyone, I'd like to thank all of you, first of all of our candidates here for coming tonight, and all of you, of course, for coming to hear them. I think an educated electorate is very important, especially everyone, thank you for staying around. If everyone would please make sure to take everything with them. If you see some trash, if you could take it, that'd be great. This event space was provided for us for free, and we need to leave it as we found it. So thank you.
how you doing? Yes. You did. Just hold on a second. The loneliest